All right, you and I are about to watch a kid with a useless power prove everyone wrong as his ability goes totally off the charts. Our main character, Jung Sang-woo, gets the power to clone himself. But what can a chubby gamer actually do with that? Absolutely nothing, or so he thinks. He heads back home to his usual job of grinding in games and selling off his achievements. Curious about his new skill, Sang-woo decides to test it. He concentrates, pops out a clone, and is instantly shocked to find the guy standing there completely naked. For the first time, he sees how his private parts are buried under all that fat. Touching another guy is super weird, but hey, it is his own body, so whatever. He orders the clone to get dressed and starts testing his control. Sang-woo makes it do squats and stand up. Sure enough, the chubby clone is completely out of breath after just 5 reps. Talk about a weak, totally useless double. He thinks his life is over. But then, a system screen alerts him that his vitality increased by 0.01. 1 month later, and look at this guy. He runs so much that the park regulars think he is a total freak. But here is the real kicker, the actual Sang-woo is just chilling at home. In just 30 days, he shed 20 kilos and discovered the insane rules of his power. His clone's exhaustion does not affect him, and if it dies from overworking, it just vanishes into thin air. Now, watch closely here. He actually inherits all the fitness gains from his clones, who always copy his current look. Plus, he can command them directly with his mind. His first servant gets a telepathic order to stop running and start doing push-ups. Oh, and clones cannot make more clones. If they could, the world would end up flooded with billions of them. He forces his double to train non-stop for a month, upgrading his stats and looks completely. But a man cannot survive on just workouts. Sang-woo needs to earn real money. So, he decides to get a job and drag his clone along to pull in 2 paychecks. His clone plays a normal guy named Gyeong-oh. Luckily, one of the guys at the site knows him, so Sang-woo just lies and says he brought a buddy along. His contact, Deok-il, tells them to register at the main office. Sang-woo is sweating. It is his first time pulling a stunt like this. This is not illegal, right? A few hours in, and they are experiencing real manual labor. Well, the clone is doing all the heavy lifting, working itself completely to the bone while the real Sang-woo chills. The double is exhausted but literally cannot stop working. Sang-woo realizes it will be a disaster if the clone drops dead in front of everyone. He needs that paycheck, after all. By evening, Sang-woo feels like he is the one dying. His clone is probably wondering if it gets to become the real deal if the host kicks the bucket. Deok-il brings them drinks, seriously impressed by how hard these young guys work. He loves their dedication, but the real truth is that Sang-woo only came because his bank account is completely empty. The older man asks where Sang-woo goes to school. When he hears it is a prestigious university, Deok-il is even more blown away by our main character. He sighs, wishing his own daughter was smart enough to get into a top school like that. Sang-woo casually replies that it is really not that hard. With just a bit of studying, she could easily do it. Hearing that, Deok-il immediately offers him a new job. He wants Sang-woo to tutor his daughter and force some knowledge into her head, offering a sweet cash rate to do it. After all, a father must secure his child's future. The next day, Sang-woo wakes up with his entire body aching from the actual work. Realizing the clones suffer just as badly, he decides to go a bit easier on them. He telepathically orders his first double to come back home before the police get suspicious. Alright, I know what you were thinking. Is he going to let the poor guy rest now? Nope, not a chance. He orders the clone to shower because there is even more work waiting for it. With his clone cleaned up, Sang-woo wants to try a crazy experiment. He grabs a needle to prick the double's finger, hoping to trigger a rare awakened ability in this world. Specifically, self-healing. If he hurts his body repeatedly and lets it recover, he might unlock a rapid regeneration skill. Obviously, doing that to his actual self would be agonizing. So, the perfect solution is to just torture his clones. He hands a new phone to his double, ordering it to always pick up and exercise non-stop while at home. Sang-woo heads out to sign up for a gym. On the way, his classmate spots him and gasps. He barely recognizes him, joking that there is only half of the old Sang-woo left. Our hero explains he is living healthy now and is heading to the gym. His buddy laughs, calling it an absolute coincidence. He is also heading to a gym because of rumors about a beautiful trainer. He drags Sang-woo along. Our main character signs up, but his secret plan is to just send his clone here daily. This annoying classmate is the exact type of gym bro who screams while lifting just to get attention. His friend awakened his strength talent, giving him a solid 2.1 power rating. While he plays around on the machines, Deok-il calls to invite Sang-woo over for his daughter's first tutoring session. Sang-woo leaves the gym and heads straight over. By the way, that gym bro friend did not even sign up because, shocking absolutely no one, there was no gorgeous trainer. Sang-woo is relieved, glad he will not have to worry about that idiot bothering his clone. When he arrives at Daeokil's house, he hears shouting from inside. When the door suddenly swings open, Sang-woo takes a direct hit to the face. At least he finally gets a glimpse of what the guy's daughter looks like. She is actually stunning. Sang-woo rubs his head while Daeokil panics, bowing and apologizing like crazy for slamming the door. Daeokil's wife brings over some sliced apples, admitting she barely recognized him after his massive weight loss. Sang-woo politely explains he has been working out hard lately. Wiping his mouth, he looks over at the girl. Young Han looks incredibly nervous, staring at her knees with blushing cheeks, but she quietly responds when they call her name. As our hero introduces himself, her happy parents notice her shy, blushing, and assume she already has a massive crush on him. She is mortified, thinking Sang-woo heard her screaming earlier. He confirms she is a high school junior and asks to check her report card first. The poor girl looks like she has just seen a ghost. Sang-woo examines her report card, holding back a sigh at her terrible grades, which only range between a 6 and a 7. Her parents look totally speechless, while the girl is so incredibly embarrassed she wishes the floor would swallow her whole. The father slowly stands up with a totally blank face, silently packing his things. Suddenly, he shouts that he has to leave for work, escaping and leaving his poor wife to deal with the disaster alone. Sang-woo looks up from the terrible grades. She looks down like a sad, defeated puppy. Smiling warmly, he reassures her that it is fine, admitting his own grades were bad too, but he knows all the shortcuts. Her face lights up with hope, and trust me, you and I are going to love seeing her transform under his teaching. Alright, you and I are about to dive into the wildest cloning power story ever. Our main character agrees to tutor his new student twice a week, but as he returns to his tiny apartment, he knows his own journey has only just begun. Recalling their study session, memories flash through his mind. The girl, Hyeon, seems incredibly driven and cooperative, absorbing every single bit of guidance he offers. Hanging up his coat, he feels relieved she is actually pretty sharp. But the moment he boots up his computer, he realizes clone number 1 is already out working hard. Right now, he's only managing one extra cell phone for his clone. But if his army grows, handling dozens of devices is going to become an absolute nightmare. He logs onto Hunter Web, a massive hub for dungeon guides, party recruiting, and gear trading. His main goal? Finding any kind of skill scroll that might match his unique cloning power. Scrolling through trading boards and random ads, his eyes suddenly bug out. He literally does a massive spit take after seeing a single skill listed for 100 million won. Another basic mental skill is sitting at a casual 400 million, bringing him to actual tears. Honestly, if he ever had that much cash, he would buy a luxury house instead of some glowing scroll. Sinking into his chair, he lets out a deeply defeated sigh. It would take him lifetimes to save up that kind of fortune. Do these high-tier hunters really make that much money? A quick glance at his banking app confirms he is completely broke. Face-planting onto his floor in total despair, he wishes the world would just explode. But then some crazy intrusive thoughts start to creep in. Should he actually become a licensed hunter? Loud headlines about legendary hunters and their epic achievements fill his screen. Standing up, he paces around his room, completely lost in thought about his future. But pay attention here because this is where everything changes. Realizing his cloning skill is wasted on simple labor, he grabs his jacket with a crazy new plan in mind. With his raw vitality surging, he is finally ready to take the plunge. Ever since mysterious portals opened back in the 2000s, unleashing deadly monsters, half of humanity was wiped out. Just when absolute extinction felt guaranteed, awakened humans with crazy abilities stepped up to fight on the front lines. They won the war, and today in 2023, professional hunters still track down the remaining beasts. This is the legendary world of hunters. After studying an online crash course on the licensing exam, Sang takes down some quick notes and sprints straight toward the official Hunter Association headquarters. Stretching his arms, he realizes that cultivating his vitality has given him insane stamina, keeping him fully energized even on barely any sleep. Walking into the association lobby, the heavy atmosphere hits him. Nearby, a masked swordsman is quietly negotiating with a shady-looking weapons dealer. Over in the corner, a scarred, bald veteran meticulously cleans a heavy firearm, while a suspicious old man in a massive hat waits silently. Sang is completely blown away by the bizarre crowd gathered here. Strangely, the testing crowd seems pretty small today. Suddenly, a uniformed staff member announces that exam registration closes in exactly 20 minutes. He knows he needs to hurry to the basement, but his severe anxiety is really starting to flare up. He finally locates the heavy door labeled Hunter License Testing Room. Trembling from head to toe, He slowly cracks it open and squeaks out a nervous "excuse me." The room is packed with terrifying powerhouses and absolute weirdos, with zero exceptions. Sweating buckets, he instantly regrets his life choices, wondering how things got this intense. A couple of shady thugs snicker at him, mocking his polite entrance like he is some helpless kid. Suddenly, heavy combat boots stomp forward, and a heavily scarred hand grips the main desk. This giant is Han Mongen, an elite-class hunter and their official exam proctor. He coldly explains the process, consisting of a written, practical, and psychological aptitude test. He warns them that cheaters are permanently blacklisted, silencing the arrogant thugs who were laughing earlier. Even our main character can feel his stomach turning from the raw pressure. You and I can feel the tension in the room as the proctor officially starts the exam. Meanwhile, outside on the peaceful city streets, a lone car cruises smoothly through the light traffic. Speaking into his headset, the driver promises his angry boss that all payments will be deposited by the end of the month, telling him to chill out since he's a seasoned pro. But the boss just screams louder, nearly bursting the poor guy's eardrum. This stressed driver is Koang, an employee at the JM agency, and he is convinced his boss will murder him. With cash flow tight and bills piling up, he glances anxiously at his watch. It is 15 minutes to 8, meaning the hunter licensing exam is finally wrapping up. He cruises over a massive bridge painted in the orange glow of sunset. Elsewhere, a young man raises his wrist, where a flashing status screen officially congratulates him on passing. Sang stands there totally dumbfounded. Sure, other people said the licensing test was simple, but he never imagined it would be this much of a joke. The written section only required minor memorization. The practical exam gave them generous practice time with target dummies right in front of them. As for the aptitude portion, it felt like a middle school quiz asking if he ever wanted to shoot people. He honestly wonders if making the license this easy is safe, considering hunters literally handle deadly weapons and risk their lives daily. Walking home, he stares up at the towering city skyscrapers in deep thought. It really feels like the government is practically begging citizens to take up this dangerous work. But with a sigh, he decides it is better to just let it go. Suddenly, he spots a crowd where sharply dressed men in pristine suits are handing out glossy business cards. These guys look incredibly professional and high class. Flashing bright smiles to passers-by, they look like corporate recruiters. Sang realizes these are guild scouts hunting for fresh talent, and before long, one of them approaches him with a card and a warm congratulations. The card reads JM Agency, belonging to a scout named Seo Kang Junmo. He introduces himself, pitching their services to help Sang source rare items or track down profitable monsters for a minor fee. Scratching his neck awkwardly, our hero thanks him and steps away. But the moment he pulls up his floating system status screen, his jaw absolutely drops. His cloning skill has officially leveled up to level 2. Leaving the recruiter mid-sentence, Sang suddenly bolts down the street, shouting that he will get in touch later. The abandoned recruiter is left whining, pathetically pleading with him not to forget to call. Meanwhile, Sang dashes back into his apartment building, covering his face as he lets out some incredibly suspicious giggles. He is absolutely ecstatic because he can now summon 2 clones simultaneously. Instantly, a brand new copy materializes right beside him, emerging from a thick cloud of smoke. Now there are 3 of him, and he happily welcomes clone number 2 to the team. Pulling out the scout's business card, he declares that they are officially ready to begin their hunting career. Junmo tosses his remaining business cards onto the passenger seat, glad to finally be done for the day. Straightening his tie, he silently prays that one of those rookies actually calls him back. He stares thoughtfully at his reflection in the dark car window. The camera then pans up to a towering skyscraper, the prestigious headquarters of Hong Guild, the #1 guild in the nation. Inside, a highlighted document rests on a sleek desk. Sip ping from a mug, an executive orders him to process the transaction listed on the paper. Junmo grabs the sheet and nods in agreement. However, scanning the details closely, his expression suddenly turns pale. Listed under the payouts are extremely bizarre market rates for slime fluid, horned rabbit horns, and troll essence. So what do you and I make of this shady business? Before the sweating recruiter can even question the bizarre prices, the senior officer cuts him off, leaving us hanging on a massive cliffhanger. Let's jump into a story where things are already tense. This smug guy asks Junmo how long he has been at Hong, warning him to stay sharp. Honestly, it is already getting pretty sketchy. Slamming his mug down, he points out that playing by the book leaves them with absolutely nothing. Slapping a hand on Junmo's shoulder, he tells him not to be so sensitive about how the guild runs things. Basically, he is pressuring him to look the other way. Furious, Junmo crushes the paper in his hand. But the guy just sneers, mockingly asking him if he finally gets the message. Sitting in his car, Junmo regrets even opening his mouth. This mess is way too complicated. Suddenly, a phone starts buzzing inside his suit. He scrambles to grab it, hoping for some good news. He picks it up, confirming he is Kang Jun-mo from the JM agency. On the line is Jong Sang-woo, a hunter with something very important to discuss. Under the cover of night, Jun-mo heads over to a cafe called Starlux. He steps inside, searching the room. Sitting at a table nearby, Sang spots him and eagerly waves him over. Jun-mo apologizes for running late, but Sang tells him he just got there himself. He then asks if they should grab a drink. They order some delicious-looking iced coffee. Once they are settled, Jun-mo asks if Sang is looking for a safe hunt, something even a complete rookie could easily manage. Sang nods. When asked about his specific skill, our main character takes a sip of his coffee and calmly reveals that he is a cloner. Puzzled, Jun-mo recalls hearing about this power before. It usually just creates basic illusions. Seeing Sang chug his coffee in one go, Jun-mo thinks that for a rookie illusionist, surviving a dungeon run is going to be physically impossible. Still, he plays it cool, calls it a decent skill, and slides over the contract. He suggests starting in slime territory for his very first hunt. They are easy targets, but they release toxic gas when defeated, so masks are a must. Sang snaps a quick photo of the contract, totally confident. The other option is the Horned Rabbit Zone. Good for long grinds, but those pests are fast, meaning the payout will not be that great. There are giant rats too, but only those first two areas guarantee absolute safety. Our main character likes both options, especially looking at the solid market prices for the loot. Ready to roll, Sang agrees to the contract. With a warm smile, Jun-mo thanks the young hunter for his trust. Now, watch closely. Jun-mo asks him which of the two zones he will choose. But suddenly, another hand slides in and slams a stamp onto the paper. This completely shocks poor Jun-mo. He lifts up the stamp, revealing a perfect red signature. Dumbfounded, his eyes instantly dart between the two identical guys sitting right in front of him. With two of them sitting there, they both declare that they are running both dungeons. Flashback to a different meeting, where a spiky-haired swordsman talks with Jun-mo. He mentions hearing about his cloning ability. The masked ninja, hiding his face behind a mask, calmly nods and confirms that it is true. Jun-mo asks for a quick demonstration, and what he sees leaves him totally amazed. The swordsman sheathes his blade as multiple clones materialize around him, instantly dropping into battle-ready stances. But Jun-mo senses something is off, getting instantly nervous. Suddenly, the clones charge forward in a deadly, coordinated blade strike. The sharp blades run straight through the original ninja. Terrified, Jun-mo shields his eyes, screaming for them to stop this madness. With a racing heart, he looks back. The ninja, completely impaled by the phantom swords, calmly explains that it is all just an illusion. None of it is real. Testing it, Jun-mo reaches out, and his hand passes right through the metal. It cannot do any real harm, but it is great for distracting monsters. He lets out a relieved laugh after that intense scare. Snapping back to the present, Jun-mo remembers that previous cloner was definitely just using simple illusions. But right now, the situation is on a whole different level. Sang physically grabbed the contracts himself. On top of that, his copy just chugged coffee like a camel dying of thirst. You and I both know how crazy this is. And Jun-mo is just as stunned. Anxious, he tentatively asks if they are twins. This makes Sang burst into laughter. Pointing to his copy, he admits it is a fair guess, slapping the clone's solid shoulder to prove he is completely physical. He explains this is his actual clone. Jun-mo is confusing his skill with weak illusions, but this copy is real. In fact, he sent a third clone off to the academy. Amazed, Jun-mo asks if they can build muscle. Sang nods. If the clone trains and gets stronger, so does he. He can boost his stats through his copies. Jun-mo realizes this is no F-class skill, its potential is absolutely massive. But shifting back to the dungeons, Sang has a question. He wants to know if the same hunter can enter multiple gates simultaneously. Jun-mo explains that system logs make simultaneous entries impossible. Hearing this, Sang grimaces, realizing this red tape is going to be a major obstacle. Luckily, the helpful Jun-mo promises to handle the association and asks Sang to join him. Scratching his head, the boy agrees, though he warns his skill is on a cooldown until tomorrow afternoon. So, Jun-mo tells them to meet in 2 days at the Hunter Center. Slightly suspicious, the agent asks about the contract. Holding up the stamp, Sang says he already signed, verifying the terms through a photo sent by his clone. Jun-mo suddenly stands up, giving him a quick jump scare. Reaching out, Jun-mo says he is looking forward to their partnership. Staring blankly, Sang reflects on the massive step he just took. They shake hands, finalizing the deal. The clone just sits there, completely blank, while the real Sang seals the partnership. 2 days later, Sang arrives at the massive hunter center, looking around curiously. Someone calls out to him, and he looks up. Junmo, adjusting his tie, notes that he is way too early. Sang says he hurried over to avoid making him wait, confirming if this is the association. Junmo nods, and they grab a queue ticket. The lobby is massive. Soon, their number is called. At the counter, the clerk asks Sang if he is really requesting dual access to the dungeons. She explains he is the first person since a hunter named Jumper to ask for this. Naturally, the staff has to dig through piles of old documents. The clerk returns, sending them to another desk to fill out the paperwork. Looking at the mountain of forms, both Sang and Junmo freeze in absolute horror. Junmo tells him he will handle the forms, urging Sang to head to the testing room. He then marches to the counter, ready to fight the paperwork. Meanwhile, Sang enters the testing chamber. Trust me, you and I are about to see him show off his real potential. All right, you and I are diving right back in as our main character summons his clone with a burst of energy, creating a perfectly identical but totally naked copy of himself. Yeah, he completely forgot that tiny detail, leaving the poor girl totally embarrassed. Meanwhile, in a workshop, a technician uses precision tools to finalize a custom device, proudly announcing that the identical identification bracelet is finally complete. Now, the clone can easily access the hunting grounds with a simple fingerprint scan. They can enter and exit simultaneously, meaning wherever the real Sang goes, his copy can follow. The developer excitedly yells that this broken ability is a first, not just in Korea, but worldwide. Finding the guy a bit too creepy, Sang grabs his naked clone and makes a quick exit. The inventor is left disappointed, having lost what he thought would be the ultimate test subject. Meeting back up with Junmo, Sang confirms the paperwork is cleared. All the preparations for his solo hunt are finally finished, and both he and his clone are ready to roll. Junmo asks if they are heading out immediately, and Sang confirms his schedule is wide open. When asked why the clone is wearing a mask, Sang explains he needs to hide from all the unwanted attention. But as they chat, a dark presence watches them from the balcony above. This mysterious figure looks down with a highly unsettling, sinister smirk on his face. It is the infamous Hyung Guild master, Shin Hae-sung. Scratching his neck, he realizes he recognizes Junmo and loudly calls out his name from above, instantly pulling everyone's eyes right up to him. Suddenly, a massive crash echoes from upstairs, shocking the entire crowd below. The arrogant guild leader leaps over the railing, pulling off a flashy superhero landing. Now watch closely here, this is where the tension hits the roof. The smirking boss mocks them about meeting in a dump like this, while Sang freezes, instantly recognizing this dangerous newcomer. Shin stands up, mocking Junmo for still acting like a low-tier hunter. Sang realizes this crazy guy is indeed the big guild master, who just casually fell several stories without a scratch. Junmo keeps his face completely blank while staring right back at Shin. Clenching his teeth, he greets him with polite formalities, which only makes the arrogant boss burst into a fit of mocking laughter. Shin glances at Sang, asking who the kid is. Junmo calmly explains that Sang is a hunter signed to his agency, causing Shin to sigh in disappointment. Scanning the kid from head to toe, Shin's gaze locks onto his cheap gear. He turns to Junmo with a smug grin, asking if Sang is just some trash. F rank. Our hero is highly annoyed by the insult, but Shin ignores him completely. He mocks Junmo in a fake, whiny voice, laughing that a manager who once handled C and D ranks has fallen so low. Howling with laughter, he can't believe Junmo is babysitting a pathetic F rank wearing a cheap, baggy hoodie. Junmo is absolutely boiling, holding back the urge to insult this big shot's entire lineage. But Sang calmly places a reassuring hand on his manager's shoulder, signaling him to relax. He looks completely unfazed, refusing to let this clown's trash talk get under his skin. The arrogant boss is literally wiping away tears from laughing so hard. He puffs out his chest, asking if the kid has something to say, but our main character just flashes an incredibly friendly, peaceful smile in return. He smoothly says it's an absolute honor to meet the nation's top guild master. The flattery trap worked flawlessly. Shin admits the kid has decent eyes for an F rank, but Sang isn't done playing him yet. With a subtle, dark undertone, he adds that their guild is also #1 in completely monopolizing local dungeons. Shin's ego inflates even further. Sang continues, mentioning their infamous reputation for blocking hunting grounds and taking massive cuts. He acts totally overwhelmed, pretending he's honored to even speak to such a VIP. Scratching his neck, Shin smiles darkly, flattered but sensing the subtle mockery. A heavy, threatening aura begins to bleed out of him as his grin turns incredibly cold. Okay, I know what you're thinking, this is getting extremely dangerous. Shin grips Sang's shoulders, wanting to test if his physical strength matches his mouth, leaving our hero sweating bullets. But right on cue, a nerdy assistant in glasses comes running over, shouting for his boss. Shin sighs in annoyance, calling his secretary a total party pooper. Calling it a day, Shin backs off from our hero. Glaring with cold, calculative eyes, he demands to know Sang's name, but our boy isn't about to give it up easily, telling the boss to look it up himself. Waving farewell, the boss chuckles at Sang's boldness and dismisses Junmo. Meanwhile, his stressed assistant scolds him, complaining he shouldn't just run off and cause trouble inside the Hunter Association. Back in the car, a heavy silence hangs over Junmo, Sang, and the masked clone. Breaking the ice, Junmo quietly thanks Sang for stepping in, but Sang insists he couldn't just watch. He had to step up. When Junmo asks if he already knew about his bad history with the Haeong Guild, Sang admits he did some research on the JM agency beforehand. The details were scarce, but he dug up rumors that Junmo was unfairly fired. Online forums were packed with toxic comments exposing the guild's corrupt and ruthless nature. He also saw warnings advising rookies to stay far away from their agency, since the Powerhouse Guild actively targets anyone who signs with them. Confused, Junmo asks why he still chose to join them. With a cheeky smirk, Sang replies that the high payout rate was simply too good to pass up, while his mute clone just stares silently out the window. Plus, Sang says he trusts Junmo to handle the political side of the hunter industry. Touched by this genuine show of faith, the manager tightly grips the steering wheel with a renewed sense of purpose. Offering a heartfelt thanks, they drive off into the city. Cut to a high-energy gym blasting heavy workout music. Inside, a heavily bruised bandaged hand shakes violently while struggling to lift massive iron weights. Muscular, trembling legs push through the absolute limits of exhaustion. It is Sang's clone, training with terrifying, robotic focus that starts drawing concerned looks from everyone nearby. The head trainer bites his nails in sheer disbelief at this superhuman stamina. Another gym member asks if they should stop him, but the trainer sighs, explaining that the guy completely ignores any warnings. The exhausted clone is literally running on fumes, but keeps pushing until a ping echoes from his pocket. Gripping the heavy metal bar with bloody, damaged hands, he pauses to check a new text message. It is a direct order from the real Sang, telling him to wrap up, shower, and wait outside by 4 o'clock. The clone immediately downs an entire energy drink in a single gulp, finally stopping his insane routine. The relieved onlookers watch him leave, thankful he did not end up hospitalized. Deep inside a pitch-black cave dungeon, glowing lava slimes crawl across the wet floor. They are absolutely everywhere, coating the walls and dripping from the ceiling, occasionally bursting with loud, highly toxic explosions. A figure clad in a full protective suit and heavy gas mask swings a massive warhammer. After smashing a glowing slime, they use a suction hose to collect the remaining red liquid into a nearly full backpack tank. Step by step, the masked hunter walks out of the blue portal, passing 2 heavily armed guards. It is none other than our boy Sang, who pulls off his mask to catch a breath of fresh air. Junmo asks how the grind went, and Sang complains about how suffocating the mask is. Junmo explains that while this slime zone is safe, most hunters avoid it because the pay is incredibly low. Looking at his ruined glove, Sang realizes this boring collection quest is definitely just a temporary stepping stone. And trust me, you and I wouldn't last 6 hours in there either. But with upgraded gear and a high-grade mask, Sang is about to break every grinding record in the book. Let's dive into this crazy scene where Sang realizes 6 hours is way too long. But wait, he has a genius idea, pointing to his clone and asking, what if he goes instead? Without a single ounce of mercy, our guy shoves a gas mask straight onto the clone's face. He then tightly laces up his combat boots and slips on gloves to guard against the harsh elements. Feeling incredibly proud and hopeful, Sang bids farewell to clone number 2, wishing him the best of luck. He then wastes zero time, eagerly asking Junmo if they can head to the Horned Rabbit territory. He tries to point to clone number 1, only to realize the poor guy isn't even there. Sang blanks out. Suddenly remembering, he completely forgot to pick him up from the gym. Meanwhile, clone number 1 is waiting with his gym bag, his body trembling from a brutal workout. And there he is. Clone number 1, standing exactly where he was ordered. Right then, a car pulls up and parks right beside him. Sang rolls down the window and shouts for number 1 to hop in. As they drive off under a gorgeous city sunset, Junmo asks if he really plans on naming his clones just number 1 and number 2. Our hero explains that since they look identical, creative names would only make things super confusing. Junmo actually agrees, noting that for mere clones, real names are pretty much pointless anyway. Switching gears, Sang mentions he heard people usually hunt horned rabbits with guns, Flashing a quick finger gun gesture, he asks if he needs to buy any special gear for this hunt. Junmo explains he can use his own, or rent gear right at the hunting grounds for a fee, though he agrees Sang will eventually need to invest in his own personal weapons. Rented gear cannot leave the premises, making it easy for owners to keep track of. Sang rests his face in his hands, deeply lost in thought, until a sudden noise interrupts him. The agent announces they have arrived. That explains the noise. Before them lies the massive Yujangan field, packed with military tanks and serious heavy-duty weaponry. Now watch closely as they encounter heavily armed guards directing massive tanks. This place is absolutely gigantic, making the slime dungeon look like a joke. Sang realizes they are in a whole new league. Junmo explains that this is the infamous site of a past monster invasion. Rubbing his chin, Sang recalls hearing rumors about this place in the news. Usually, portals are isolated pockets where hunters go to fight, but occasionally, monsters break through to the human world, laying waste to the environment and turning an entire city sector into an active war zone. That exact disaster happened right here 5 years ago. While the deadliest beasts were wiped out, a few low-tier F and E-class monsters still roam the area, making it the perfect training ground. Slightly worried, Sang asks if the loud gunfire will draw complaints. The duo then prepare to enter, stopping first at a local weapon rental counter. A grumpy clerk hands over a high-powered rifle, demanding 700,000 won. Wincing at the steep price, Sang knows it is a massive fortune, but reluctantly hands over his card. Junmo points out that the ammo itself is what drains your wallet. However, bagging just one single horned rabbit will recoup everything because they are incredibly valuable. The hunting zone is split into levels, and their assigned spot is up on the 3rd tier. Arriving at the coordinates, Junmo announces they have finally reached their vantage point. But right as they settle in, a bone-rattling explosion suddenly shakes the entire area. Sang immediately covers his ears from the noise. Strangely, the battlefield has a laid-back vibe, with hunters casually firing, while others relax and eat snacks on the sidelines. Nearby, a long-haired hunter puffing on a cigarette sighs over another missed shot. Meanwhile, a guy in a bucket hat proudly displays his freshly killed horned rabbit, with several more stuffed in his bag from an incredibly successful hunt. This seriously impresses our protagonist, who heard that bagging even one rabbit is ridiculously tough. Since Sang is assigned to station number 4, Junmo guides him toward his spot. Getting ready, Junmo asks if he is actually any good with a gun. Assembling his rifle with a cocky grin, Sang laughs and asks if he knows who he is talking to, bragging about only missing 3 shots on his exam, though that target was way closer. Finishing the assembly, he jokingly says he feels bad for what he is about to do to those poor rabbits. To block out the incoming noise, he puts on bulky protective earmuffs. Can you believe this guy? He aims his rifle, bragging that no rabbit can escape the eagle eye of Yujangan. Junmo is just glad everyone has ear protection on. Our hero quickly spots a rabbit sitting motionless in the distance. He screams at the top of his lungs that he found one, his incredible scanning speed totally catching Junmo off guard. Locking in, he aligns his crosshairs directly with the center of the target. Taking a deep breath, he gently squeezes the trigger, whispering to himself that the hunt has finally begun. Fast forward 3 hours. Darkness blankets the field, and Sang looks like he has seen a ghost. Staring blankly with wide, shocked eyes, he is utterly crushed after failing to land even one shot. Sinking down into his chair in absolute defeat, he finally realizes why. His aiming was perfectly fine, but those rabbits have long ears and hypersensitive hearing, allowing them to dodge before the bullet even reaches them. Because of the huge distance from the tower, they have plenty of time to react. Annoyed, Sang grumbles that the second he pulled the trigger, the beast had already vanished. With the night growing late, Junmo has to take his leave. Sang is left behind, failing to recoup even a fraction of his ammo expenses. He wonders if it is time to quit. Summoning clone number 1, who instantly responds. Sang hands him the rifle and commands him to keep shooting. He orders him to text whenever he bags a rabbit, and call if he completely runs out of ammo. Sighing at his own bad aim and hating that he has to exploit his clones like this, he heads back home. Snug in his cozy bed, he opens his system interface to check on his progress. He catches constant increments in his mana pool, all thanks to clone number 2 tearing through slimes, expanding his overall status window. He smiles at the major passive stat gains flowing in. Even as his powers steadily skyrocket, a lingering anxiety remains. He remembers his encounter with the dangerous leader of the Heisen Guild, a run-in that nearly landed him in deep trouble. Shutting his eyes and taking a deep breath, Sang reminds himself that he still has a long hill to climb. Exhaustion finally takes over, and he drifts into sleep. He yawns from the wild events of the day, yet those fast-hopping rabbits still rent space in his mind. His eyes fly open, unable to relax as he silently prays that clone number 1 can hunt down at least one rabbit to make that insanely expensive rental rifle worth it. At last, he rolls over and begins to sink into a peaceful slumber. But suddenly, in the dead of night, his phone screen flashes awake with a flood of incoming text alerts. Checking his 46 unread notifications, he realizes they are all reports from his clone who successfully bagged several rabbits. Fast forward to a gorgeous morning in the city. The sky is clear, dotted with only light clouds. Inside his office building, Agent Jun Mo stands near the window with crossed arms, completely lost in deep thought. Suddenly, a loud ringtone breaks the silence. Picking it up, he introduces himself as the JM agency. An anxious voice asks if he manages the awakened hunter, Zhang Sang-woo, before introducing himself. It is the manager of the Slime Dungeons, begging Junmo to rush over immediately. When asked why, the panicked manager explains that Sang has been grinding for 24 hours straight and has lost his mind. Deeply concerned, Junmo promises he is on his way right now. Meanwhile, back at home, our clueless protagonist is only just rubbing his eyes after a long, luxurious nap. Grabbing his phone, he sees a flurry of alerts, including one from clone number 1 who ran out of bullets. Sang's jaw drops as he clicks the log, staring at the sheer volume of piled-up messages. Sang stares at his phone in total shock while Junmo arrives at the field with the same horrified face. You and I must see what happens next. All right, you and I are diving into a crazy story. Massive tanks of slime are overflowing. This hunt was an absolute goldmine, leaving him wondering how he filled them in one day. Soldiers nervously approach a masked man as red liquid begins dripping from his face. Watching this, Junmo pulls out his phone to make a quick call, thinking to himself that this is really not the time for games. On the other end, Sang picks up. The panic agent blares through the speaker, yelling that the clone literally filled every single container and they are wrapping up. He screams for Sang to make his clone stop hunting. Sang is thrilled, but casually asks if the cleanup crew can also sweep through Ujangun. Junmo gets confused and then we see exactly why. A colossal mountain of hunted horned rabbits is piled high right there. Sang explains the dead monsters are literally blocking the roads, and workers cannot even count them all. Everyone is completely stunned. Someone even mutters that nobody would notice if a single rabbit went missing. Meanwhile, clone number 1 sits quietly in his cap and mask, hands completely filthy from the slaughter. Suddenly, a recruiter in a sharp suit approaches, offering a business card. He praises the clone's mind-blowing hunting skills, revealing he represents the powerful Brown Bear Guild. Their leader is Kim Byung. Before the clone even reacts, the suit asks if he already joined another guild. But our silent killer just completely ignores him, offering zero response. Shaking with awkward nervousness, the recruiter tries to keep his cool, telling himself that true geniuses are always a little weird. Now, pay attention here. Another suited agent just shakes his head. A whole line of high-profile scouts have tried talking to the clone, only to get dead silence. It turns out every major guild recruiter is waiting in line. While the suits are gossiping, Sang sneaks up and slips the clone a small green box. In a quiet whisper, he hands over more ammo, telling him to keep the pressure on and continue the hunt. He tells him to let the agent handle the mess. Sang pats his double on the shoulder, saying he did an amazing job. And right here, we actually see a flash of emotion from the clone. The double looks genuinely thrilled to get some praise. Without wasting a second, he reloads his weapon with the fresh ammo, gearing up. The crowd is absolutely speechless, watching him prepare to go again. Everyone is dying to see how this mysterious marksman operates, with some even pulling out their phones to film. Meanwhile, Sang starts realizing he heavily underestimated what his clones can actually do. Currently, the clones inherit 50% of his stats, meaning they only possess half of Sang's true power. Yet, their ruthless machine-like focus and zero hesitation give them a massive edge. Sang is deep in thought, analyzing this when a loud voice calling out, "Teacher," snaps him right back to reality. Looking up, he sees the young girl asking what has him so distracted. He quickly plays it cool, claiming he was just impressed by her progress, but she playfully demands to know the real truth. Sang laughs it off, saying he just visited a dungeon and things went way better than planned. Heian literally leaps out of her chair, totally shocked to learn her tutor is a licensed hunter. Sang realizes he never brought it up, but she immediately whips out her phone, asking if he has heard about the crazy rumor spreading online today. She plays a viral video of the famous Hawkeye sharpshooter from Ujangan, and Sang nearly chokes when he recognizes his own clone. Completely stunned, he struggles to find any words. She shoves the screen closer, telling him this mysterious hunter already bagged over 200 rabbits and is on track to set a record. Yet he remains totally silent. The fact that he ignores everyone makes him look even cooler and more mysterious. When they begged for his name, he simply claimed he was the Hawkeye of Jangan. Hearing this makes Sang sweat bullets. She gushes about how incredibly cool he is, admitting her ultimate dream is to become a hunter too. Surprised, our hero asks if she is actually awakened. She nods, revealing she even has a license, but admits she is too terrified to actually enter a dungeon. Shaking, she tucks her hair back, looks Sang in the eye, and asks if she gets high grades. Would he take her to a hunting ground just once? Sang promises that if she passes her college entrance exams, he will absolutely take her along. She instantly lights up with joy, and Sang mentions he knows a couple of safe beginner dungeons. Giggling, she holds up her pinky finger, wanting to make an official promise. Sang sighs happily, glad to see her study motivation suddenly skyrocket, and locks pinkies with her to seal the deal. With a bright smile, she warns him not to break his word. As night falls, Sang encourages her to keep studying hard so she can easily ace her entry into Gyeongguk University. Later, the door creaks open, letting a warm light spill out. Haeun's mother is busy washing dishes and looks surprised that their session is already over. She asks how it went, and Sang warmly reassures her that everything was perfect. You and I both know she's listening in. Haeun presses her ear to the door, blushing as Sang praises her. Her mother invites him for dinner, but he politely declines, saying he has plans and will return on Monday. Hearing this, she immediately gets flustered. She flops onto her bed, hugging a teddy bear tight and daydreaming about their promise while subconsciously sparking a tiny flame in her hand. Realizing her tutor is an actual hunter makes her giddy, especially since they connected so well today. At first, she hated having a family friend as a tutor, but she completely changed her mind. Thinking back to his warm smile, her heart starts racing like crazy. He is kind, deeply considerate, and honestly, an incredibly amazing teacher. Recalling the genuine smiles he gives her during their study sessions, she blushes and squeezes her teddy bear, realizing he is actually super cute. But suddenly, her face completely shifts. Flustered, she sighs deeply. Slapping her cheeks, she sits upright with a determined look, deciding to study harder than ever. Outside, the night remains peaceful and quiet. Under the pitch-black night sky, Sang arrives at the hunter base. Riding the elevator, he wonders if the cleanup crew finished gathering the rabbits, only to spot Junmo waiting there in surprise. Surprised, Sang asks his agent what he is doing here. Nearby, workers are lugging heavy crates. Junmo explains he was overseeing the collection and asks where Sang has been all this time. Sang casually mentions his tutoring job while a worker carries a massive rabbit past them. The agent admits he has dealt with clearing fields before, but never in his life has he had to call in this many collection teams just for horned rabbits. The final count was 352 beasts, requiring an army of people to clear. Workers are frantically sorting them right now. Junmo asks if he saw the deposit, but Sang shakes his head and pulls out his phone. Instantly, his previously empty bank account is overflowing with an obscene amount of cash. Sang looks like he literally just hit the lottery jackpot. Sweating profusely, he stammers and asks the agent if there is some kind of mistake with this massive payout. Junmo explains that since his skills surpassed Frank, he calculated the cut at the 83% rate for E-rank hunters. Overflowing with gratitude, Sang thanks him repeatedly, even though he is not ranked yet. Suddenly, a loud, angry voice interrupts their conversation. Sang, his clone, and Junmo all turn their heads to see who is shouting at them. A massive, scarred hunter approaches, rudely pointing at the masked clone and asking if Junmo is his manager. Sensing trouble, the agent immediately steps in front of his hunter, asking who exactly is asking. He claims his kills were stolen, and trust me, he is furious. He demands the entire bounty, but you and I will have to wait and see how Sang handles this jerk next time. All right, you and I are jumping right into a mess. Some smug jerk is demanding they pay up, and Junmo is definitely not thrilled about dealing with him. He whispers to Sang that they picked the absolute wrong spot, while Sang can't believe guys like this actually exist. Rubbing his chin, our main character starts plotting his next move. Quietly, he tells his agent he has a plan. The greedy jerk watches them whisper and demands to know what's up, but then holds out his hand, claiming he'll settle for just 10% of the cash. Sang looks completely soul-crushed and dumbfounded. The thug snaps, asking if he thinks this is funny or if he looks like some kind of clown to him. Sang just pats his clone's shoulder, telling the jerk they won't be back for days anyway. He tells his agent to walk, but the thug loses his temper, shouting that he's not done with them yet. The duo completely ignore his threats and walk right past him, casually heading to a nearby cafe. This drives the hot-headed thug absolutely insane with rage. Veins popping on his forehead, the guy winds up a massive punch right at our protagonist. As the jerk screams in fury, Sang quickly commands clone number 1 to make a move. Glowing like an activated machine, the clone steps directly into the path of the incoming strike. The heavy fist connects with full, brutal force right on his face. Sent flying backward from the sheer force of that impact, poor clone number 1 bounces off random boxes in his path like a pinball. The thug looks confused as the clone lands flat on his back, spread-eagled on the floor. That punch definitely left a mark, leaving visible scuffs on the clone's mask. Suddenly, the bully's tough attitude completely shifts to panic. He starts whining that he barely even touched him. Seizing the moment, Sang whips out his phone to record everything, shouting about how cruel this brute is. Now pay attention to how Sang totally flips the script, yelling that people won't stand for such savage violence inside a sacred hunting ground while the cleanup crew stares. Sang casually mentions how tragic it would be if this footage leaked online. The thug's face turns bright red and veiny, completely speechless and trembling with anxiety. Stepping close, Sang puts a friendly hand on his shoulder, but with a dark, terrifying aura bleeding out, he suggests they should just walk away and forget this happened. Gritting his teeth in pure fury, the thug has no choice but to back down. Later, relaxing outside a cozy cafe, Sang suddenly asks about the infamous Hyung Guild. Junmo explains that the aggressive hunter from earlier was likely one of theirs. Because the Hyung Guild is massive, it attracts all kinds of trashy, hot-headed brawlers. As the clone chugs his drink, Sang wonders how Junmo knew the guy's affiliation. The agent reveals that the thug was giving them a shady stare from the start, a classic sign of Hyung Guild troublemakers. Sang guesses it might be revenge. They probably targeted the clone thinking he was just another rookie hunter working for the struggling JM agency. The agent sadly agrees, admitting that hunters sign with JM never last long and usually leave with almost nothing to show for it. Even now, Junmo can't promise the guild won't try to sabotage them again. Confidently, Sang replies that he already knew the risks before signing up, which doesn't exactly ease the agent's mind. Sang refuses to let these thugs push him around, revealing he has a strategy to level up incredibly fast. As they chat, the agent is genuinely impressed by the kid's sharp mind. Keep talking as the afternoon slips away. After bouncing ideas back and forth, Sang finally asks the agent for his honest opinion on the master plan. Looking stunned, Junmo admits he never would have thought of such a wild strategy. Scribbling notes, he suggests they meet at 2 p.m. tomorrow at the massive, high-tech Hunter Market. The Hunter Market is a massive, multi-level hub stocked with everything an adventurer could dream of. From high-grade weapons to gear, it has been running since day one. It's a shopping paradise, but recently, massive department stores have stepped in and dominated the entire trade. You and I both know a good shopping spree is mandatory in any webtoon, and Sang is currently trying on some awesome titanium armor designed to block E-class monster attacks. He loves how light it feels. Even better, the suit comes with a built-in dagger slot at his hip. Drawing the sleek blade, Sang loves how perfect it is for close combat. He casually orders 2 more identical sets, and the thrilled merchant wraps them up. Sang walks away fully loaded, finally flexing the sweet power of cash. Junmo reminds him that he still needs to buy some active skills. He specifically wants a familiar ability, so the agent directs him toward a specialized shop called Heritage. The shop is packed with glowing crystal orbs that look straight out of a fantasy movie. They browse the shelves until Sang spots exactly what he needs inside a blue orb. It's the familiar skill, which lets him share senses with his summons. It's incredibly useful, but it also costs an absolute fortune. Holding his face in despair, he wonders if he really needs both of his kidneys to survive. Shamelessly, he turns to his agent and asks for a cash advance. A teary-eyed Junmo agrees to personally loan him 50 million won. Sang thanks him deeply, planning to pay off the rest of the massive bill in installments. Even though he's wrecking his credit, Sang is confident this investment will pay off fast. They purchase the glowing orb and head to a quiet spot to test it out. Sang carefully reads the activation guide, noting the different steps for those who can use mana versus those who can't. Lacking any mana, he uses a small remote control to trigger the device instead. He holds his hand flat against the orb, his fingers trembling slightly with nervous anticipation. Closing his eyes tight, he clicks the button. Instantly, a brilliant orange light floods the dark room, expanding rapidly until it bursts into a massive explosion of energy. A system notification pops up, confirming the familiar skill has been successfully unlocked at level 1, letting him share senses with any target. Staring at his palms in disbelief, the orb vanishes into thin air. Clenching his fists, our hero can feel a new, strange energy surging through his veins. Standing up, he summons his loyal clones. They march over in perfect, matching synchronization, already fully geared up in the high-tech defense suits he just purchased. Giving them a nod, Sang tells them to start. This flashes back to his earlier chat with the agent, where he asked how the hunt went. The agent was amazed by the crazy results. Sang explained that despite having only half his stats, one clone caught over 300 rabbits. Plus, when ordered to take a hit, the clone took a brutal punch straight to the face without showing a single shred of fear. Honestly, the clone could have easily trashed that bully. Junmo realizes that even with lowered stats, these summons have incredibly precise control over their physical movements. And that's where we leave things for now. Trust me, you're going to want to see how he uses specialized training grounds to master both long and short-range combat next. Alright, you and I are dropping right into the training grounds, where a massive coach greets them before splitting up to practice sharpshooting with flying clay targets. Our main character is determined to push his clones to their absolute limits and shatter their boundaries today. Both the buff physical coach and the old shooting range instructor are blown away by the clone's grit. Over in the ring, the clone demands a duel, leaving the coach seriously worried. And at the firing range, instead of a standard shotgun, the second clone demands a handgun instead. Both clones share the exact same fearless look. They're locked in. In the arena, the clone grabs his dual batons and tells his rival to bring it, while the other clone loads a lethal live-fire pistol. The shooting instructor gets incredibly tense. Holding his timer device, he signals them to start. Meanwhile, the gym instructor throws his most chaotic, wild fighter into the ring against the clone. Both tests begin instantly. The madman charges, and a clay pigeon is launched skyward. In a blinding blur, the first clone disarms his opponent, snatching a baton away. Simultaneously, the shooter clone blasts the flying target with one perfect pistol shot. The bulky coach is left completely speechless. Over at the range, the old instructor looks like he's seen a ghost. One clone stands ready in a combat stance, while the other holds a pistol, gun smoke gently drifting from the barrel. We cut back to Sang and Juno's chat. He explains this is why the familiar skill is crucial, leaving the agent stunned by his genius strategy. Juno still doesn't get why Sang wants to share his eyesight with a clone, but Sang reveals it goes way deeper than simple vision. He explains that all sensory data gets fully synchronized. Imagine the insane potential when he links up while his clones are actively fighting or shooting in real time. Closing his eyes, our main character concentrates with everything he's got and triggers his familiar skill. A vibrant, crackling blue aura erupts around his body with intense, shimmering energy. Now pay attention, because his mind basically explodes with sensory overload. Suddenly, we're seeing everything through his eyes, the baton duel, and the crazy opponent rushing in. He's literally watching the battle from afar as if he's right there. By manually adjusting joint angles and body balance, he guides the clone to dodge the incoming strike with flawless, ninja-like reflexes. Sang controls every single muscle movement and force flow. On top of that, he regulates the shooter's breath right before the trigger pull. This spikes the clone's coordination and aim to godlike levels. He even shifts the focal point dynamically. In his eyes, the clay pigeon slows to a crawl, turning into an easy target. Sang can effortlessly micromanage every single action his clones take. Eyes closed, he stays totally focused, orchestrating every single movement. He slowly opens his eyes, snapping back to reality. With a confident smirk, he realizes the sheer power he now commands as the blue aura flares like a blazing flame. Knowing he just scored an absolute cheat code, he looks at his hand with pride. Those sensory inputs were mind-blowing. He felt the wind pressure of a staff grazing his cheek, the heavy recoil and scent of gunpowder, and even the physical exhaustion creeping into their bodies. Yet, his real self hadn't budged. By sharing their senses, he directly absorbed the muscle memory of clones with identical bodies, meaning he can copy those elite moves instantly. Suddenly, a system window pops up, revealing his stats and cooldowns have upgraded. Next, he decides to reconnect with clone number 1 to check on his fight. Closing his eyes again, he focuses to channel the skill. Sang flares his blazing blue energy once more. Surrounded by heavy punching bags, his consciousness is instantly transported right into the sparring gym. Clone number 1 stands ready, dual-wielding training staffs against his next opponent. It's the master in the traditional kimono, easily one of the strongest martial artists in the facility. You and I can clearly see this guy is no joke. Even the local students are losing their minds because their master is actually stepping up to fight. Number 1 opens with a lightning-fast, surgical strike that instantly disarms the instructor. The pure power behind the blow completely shatters the heavy trainer's balance. The big guy secretly notes that the clone's offensive moves lack polish, but his defense, unbelievable. It's like he anticipates every single strike. Getting nervous, the master focuses deeply. Veins bulging on his forehead, the master unleashes a massive strike, slamming his staff into the clone's guard and making his arms shudder. But the clone pushes back with absurd raw strength, shocking the veteran. They lock weapons, staring each other down in a tense, menacing standoff. The master is stunned by the clone's sheer power and instant adaptation. Pressure is mounting on the big instructor, who realizes he might actually lose. In desperation, he unleashes a wild, sweeping counter, but the clone cleanly slips past it. The onlookers gasp in disbelief at that clean dodge. Seizing the opening in the trainer's guard, the clone launches a fierce counter-strike. The heavy blow rattles the master's staff and slams directly into his shoulder. The veteran is shaken by the impact as friction smoke rises from his weapon, realizing he is completely cornered. With the wall right at his back, number 1 presses his advantage, preparing the finishing blow. But the seasoned veteran still has one trick left. Using the wall to launch himself, he pulls off an insane backflip to evade the downward strike. Sang's eyes widen in absolute awe at the move. The muscular master lands safely behind the clone, completely locked in and hyper-focused. He's still ready for action. His students cheer for his survival, knowing that was a dangerously close call. Meanwhile, the feedback hits Sang with excruciating pain shooting straight through his wrist. Shaking it off, the trainer admits that last strike was lethal, asking the clone if he's done. Sang checks on his clone mentally. Cap shadowing his eyes, the copy responds by leaping up and executing the exact same wall climb flip the master just pulled off. This incredible stunt leaves the students and the trainer totally flabbergasted, staring in disbelief. Through their mental link, Sang asks his clone if he's ready to keep pushing. Landing flawlessly just like the master did, clone number 1 holds his staff up and politely asks for another round. Grinning, the master readies his weapons, accepting the challenge. Satisfied with the progress, Sang decides to swap over to clone number 2's perspective. Nearby, a clay target shatters into a million pieces. A flashy, well-dressed blonde guy laughs, asking his girlfriend if she saw his shot, and she happily claps in response. Sang keeps quiet to avoid drama, but the sheer cringe of the couple is painful. He notices his second clone is so hyper-focused, he is even sniping other people's targets. Shaking off the distraction, he prepares for the next round. As the flashy couple calls for more targets, the clone steps up, and that's where we leave it for now. He stabilizes his upper body, locks his sights, and gets ready to trace the path of the next target. All right, you and I are diving right back into the action. The moment his sight lines up with the trajectory, he pulls the trigger. Boom, the clay pigeon shatters completely. That is another point for our legendary marksman, leaving behind nothing but a puff of smoke. Number 2 watches his perfect shot land. Sang reminds him to lock every single detail into his memory. Armed with a fierce, unwavering gaze, this shooter is absolutely locked and loaded. As the orange sunset paints the sky, Sang concentrates deeply, his blazing blue aura proof that his special skill is active. He opens his eyes with a deadly, serious glare. But swapping between summon number 1 and number 2 is completely draining him. He stares down at his trembling hand as the entire world begins to violently spin. Out of mana and desperately dizzy, it is finally time for a break. As our main character rests on a bench, his clones keep moving wildly, charging forward without a shred of fear or hesitation. Next time, he plans to join them to see what he can do himself. Just then, a shadow approaches where Sang is resting. A familiar purple-haired girl walks past. It is Haeyeon, and she instantly spots him and calls out. Our main character is totally shocked by this random encounter. Concerned, he asks why she is out so late, and she claims she was studying. He looks skeptical, making her snap that she was just doing homework, unaware that shady figures are watching. A rough-looking thug puffs on a cigarette, wondering if this is the target. These three look like they walked right off a mob movie set, wearing pure gangster scowls. On the phone, a voice demands to know why Kang Jun-mo was let go. The terrified man who tried bribing Sang earlier stammers that he tried to scare him off, but someone was recording the whole thing. The voice on the line screams in fury about the recording, but quickly snaps at him to shut up and forget it happened and stay far away from the Yujang field. Pay attention here, because if anything goes south, he must claim no connection to the Haeyeon Guild. He is told to act like a street thug, and click. Furious, the thug hurls his phone against the wall with absolute force, screaming curses at the boss who just hung up. Blinded by rage, he repeatedly stomps the phone into the dirt, screaming like a lunatic. As he crushes the device, he yells, demanding if they even know who they are messing with. Mid-tantrum, a chilling voice asks why he is throwing a fit. Enter Gun. So Haeyeon, a massive, brutal-looking thug flanked by a guy with long straight hair. That wicked, sinister grin proves he is bad news. Discarded cigarette butts litter the filthy ground. These three look so incredibly dangerous that passing pedestrians quickly cross the street to avoid them. Hyong calls him kid, mocking him for failing after joining the nation's top guild. Trembling, the thug asks for work, mentioning the guild warned him to stay away from Mujang Field. Hyung glances at the long-haired Chang Won, who suggests he might have some side work. But mid-sentence, his eyes lock onto Sang and Haeyong chatting just a short distance away. By pure chance, the duo is having a peaceful chat. The scarred thug points at Sang, grinning wickedly as he identifies the kid who filmed them. The big guy tells him to chill, noting he lost his cool earlier. Leaning against a pillar, he creeps closer to his crew, keeping his eyes glued on our hero and the girl. Sang looks completely chill as they talk. Haeyong asks what her teacher is doing out here, and he casually replies he was just getting some quick exercise. Stomping out a cigarette butt, a thug sneers that he heard Sang owes his little brother. Suddenly, the three menacing gangsters close in on them, ready for trouble. Haeyong asks who they are, and Sang mentally notes he has never seen someone so massive before spotting the scarred punk. He immediately starts planning how to deploy his clones. I know what you're thinking is a fight starting. Sang steps in front of the girl, asking how he can help. The scarred guy turns red with rage, but his massive buddy tells him to relax. He calmly explains they are here because Sang has a video of his brother getting a bit too enthusiastic. The giant demands they delete the footage, promising to leave quietly if they comply. Holding up his phone, Sang asks if deleting the file solves everything. He points the screen right at them, questioning if they can actually guarantee a safe exit once the recording is gone. The bulky leader covers his mouth with a highly sarcastic smirk, admitting he knows Sang is no fool. They absolutely have no intention of letting him walk away in one piece. He sneers that since the kid was stupid enough to keep the video in the first place, deleting it now won't save him. Whispering quietly, our hero tells Haeyong to find an opening and run. Turning back to the thugs, he boldly retorts that there is a massive difference. He is internally panicking, never expecting to face a crisis like this so soon. Yet, he squares up, confidently stating that the difference is he is going to thrash all three of them. Hyong laughs at his confidence while Chang Won charges in. The boss orders his crew to rough Sang up. Our hero barely dodges the initial strike, but against two opponents, the odds are stacked. Suddenly, the long-haired thug lands a devastating blow right on the poor kid's head. Simultaneously, the second thug connects with a brutal kick. Reeling from the massive impact of these dual attacks, our main character is in deep trouble. Before he can catch his breath, a vicious punch smashes right into his chin. Haeyong screams in absolute terror for her teacher, as Sang collapses heavily onto the hard pavement. Battered and bruised, he realizes his first real fight is going horribly. Suddenly, the brave girl steps in front of him, a brilliant light charging at her fingertips. The energy forms a glowing sphere as she screams at the gang to back off. Staggering to his feet, Sang looks at his student, but a closer glance reveals a deeply worrying detail. She is trying her absolute best, but her hands are trembling. The thugs recognize she is an awakened, and their expressions instantly darken. The massive leader shoves his goons aside, mocking them for fearing a mere high schooler. He towers over the girl, asking menacingly what she plans to do if he refuses to back away. Before he can take another step, she screams for him to stay back and releases her power directly at his approaching, massive frame. Shaking with anxiety, she grits her teeth. With a desperate, clumsy thrust of her palm, she sends an energy blast flying directly into the giant's protruding stomach. The impact triggers a loud explosion that shakes the area, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. The panicked goons scream out for their leader. As the smoke clears, Hyung stands completely unharmed. He mocks her, saying awakened are everywhere these days and that she has nothing to brag about. The blast only ripped his shirt, exposing some menacing tattoos. He raises a massive hand to deliver a brutal slap, telling her to grow up. But Sang suddenly dives in front of her. Glaring with pure fury, Sang shouts that their battle is far from over. Channeling every ounce of his strength, he drives a massive punch straight into Hyung's face. As the giant staggers back, his sleeves fly up, exposing an awakened bracelet. Hyung gasps. Our hero is fighting for his life in this unfair brawl. Hyung groans in pain. Sang stands guard, but the monster is furious. Trust me, you and I are about to see a real war. All right, you and I are jumping right into a wild fight. Sang realizes he needs to remember what his first clone saw. He can't just stare at the opponent's weapon. To dodge, he has to watch the guy's shoulder and move first, knowing real fighting is about body structure, not wild arms swinging. It is a whole kinetic chain, shifting power from the legs to the waist and then straight to the arms in one fluid, complex motion. Playing it smart and keeping his eyes peeled, Sang lands a clean strike on his foe. But when he realizes he cannot dodge the incoming counter from Hung, he makes a split-second decision. Instead of running, he delivers a brutal double punch right into the giant's gut. Our main character is totally gassed, but his opponent is in way worse shape, squirming in pure agony. With a swollen face from earlier blows, Sang wipes his bloody lip. But Hung, whose eyes are now glowing red, admits the kid actually knows how to fight. He claims he was only holding back because he hated beating up someone who seemed like a complete amateur. Sang is still reeling from that heavy impact, but he stands tall. He got a solid hit in. But this guy is an absolute tank. He must have some kind of strength-boosting buff. Realizing this, Sang knows he cannot afford to take another direct hit. Meanwhile, the monster charges forward, wearing a wicked grin. Using his insane speed, Sang intercepts the beast with a lightning-fast counter. The strike lands perfectly on the giant's face. Now bruised and battered, Hung lost his mind and started cursing at our boy. He swings wildly, desperate to land anything. But Sang easily leaps out of the way and counters with another strike. He knows he needs one massive hit to finally put this guy down. The moment he touches down, the massive brute reloads for another strike, but Sang beats him to the punch, smashing him right in the face again. Nearby, Chang is still cowering on the floor, watching the fight and cheering on his partner. Sang is in the zone now, hyper-focused, shut off from everything but his opponent. Totally enraged from taking constant hits to the face, Hung starts drooling like a rabid beast. His skin flushes red, and his tattoos glow like they are coming alive. His attacking arm bulges, as he prepares to unleash a devastating blow on Sang. Our main character knows he absolutely cannot take this hit. He must dodge it. But pay attention here. Out of nowhere, a cheap hand grabs his foot right as he tries to dodge. It is Chang Wan, pulling a cowardly move. Now our boy is in a terrible spot. Stuck in place, there is no way for him to dodge. The giant unleashes his entire rage, landing a devastating punch right into Sang's stomach. It feels like a rhinoceros just rammed into his gut. An is terrified, screaming no as her eyes widen in shock. The massive impact sends our boy flying straight into a brick wall. Slumped on the floor, he clutches his stomach, desperate for air. The blow completely knocked the wind out of him, but he tries to stay calm, forcing himself to breathe while keeping his eyes locked on the enemy. He refuses to give up, but Hung closes in for the finish, raising his massive fist. The ground erupts in a massive cloud of smoke, but wait, it is Hung who is screaming in agony. His eyes roll back as he gasps for air. Sang stares in complete disbelief, wondering what just happened. Turns out, Hun was the one behind it, standing in a solid combat stance. The other thugs are on the ground shouting in anger, completely blindsided by her intervention. They yell at her for not running away, calling her an idiot. But out of nowhere, the clones materialize and jump the two cheaters. She is shocked but incredibly relieved to see a clone standing right by her side. The masked clone stands ready. Distracted by the commotion behind him, Hung looks back but Sang immediately calls out, forcing the big guy to look his way. Wiping the blood from his cheek, Sang says he can finally breathe again. The giant charges in with absolute hatred, but our main character is completely unbothered. Using the wall as a springboard, he pulls off the exact dodge he used during training. Sliding past the giant, he mockingly thanks him for being such a useful training dummy. Riding the momentum, he delivers a crushing kick directly to the giant's head. With the fight over, Sang collapses to the floor, exhausted but in much better shape than the broken brute lying unconscious. And you and I both know what comes next is sweet reward. His status screen pops up, showing he's gained strength, speed, stamina, and dexterity. To make things even better, his cloning skill gets a temporary upgrade. He can now summon 3 clones. Bruised but victorious, our boy can't help but laugh. The moment his body relaxes, he collapses onto the floor. His clones and Han rush over to check on him, but Sang just smiles, basking in his victory. Later that night, under the city lights, Han sits with her hand bandaged. Sang asks why she did not escape, but she points out he would have been done for without her. Shaken, he has to agree. She admits she was shocked to discover that the legendary Supreme Hunter was actually Sang's clone. The clone acts incredibly smug, prompting the main character to walk over. He begs her to keep it quiet, but she wonders why he would avoid the fame. Sang explains that too much attention brings danger, so she promises to keep his secret. Reaching her house, she seems a bit sad the night is ending. When he asks if her injured hand will affect her schoolwork, she playfully reveals she hurt her non-writing hand. She teases him, asking for a lighter homework load because of her injury, but Sang reminds her that she already finished everything at the library. Pouting, she complains about his perfect memory. Softening up, Sang looks at his student and sincerely thanks her for saving his skin back there. He knows he only won because she stepped in. Blushing, she proudly agrees and suggests that a proper thank you requires a delicious hot meal, basically inviting herself out for a real dinner date. Looking him dead in the eye, She tells him that this dinner date is now an official promise. They wave goodbye, and she heads inside happy. Sang promises to treat her to plenty of meat, but as he walks away, his clones stare at him with wide, judging eyes. Feeling uncomfortable under their gaze, he tells them to stop slacking and get to work. However, they complain that it is too late and the training grounds are closed. Smiling warmly, Sang picks up some branches and hands them over, telling them they can practice in the park. Fast forward 1 month later, and we are outside the office of Agent Juno. He is calling Sang to check on the progress, and our boy proudly reveals it was a massive success. He can now shoot targets accurately and even summon a third clone. Junmo asks if this speeds up his learning rate. One look at his status screen proves he has evolved like crazy. Sang tells him he has a little surprise. He asks the agent to secure 3 high-rank hunting grounds for tomorrow. Juno boasts he will get them done, no matter what it takes. When asked about the routine, the boy says they will train in the morning and hunt all through the afternoon. Ending the call, he assigns his 3 clones their tasks. One does upper body, one does lower body, and the last does cardio. He sends them to the park, telling them to return by 12. The bumbling trio almost walks out with weapons, but he yells at them. And that is where we leave Sang, plotting his next epic hunt. Alright, you and I are about to watch our main character realize his clones are absolute copycat geniuses. If he just studies how monsters behave, his clones can replicate those moves and clear dungeons like it is child's play. Our hero starts binge-watching online combat tutorials, taking notes on monster weaknesses. These videos break down everything from the best weapons to use to the most effective tactical strategies. By the next afternoon, our exhausted hero is waiting at home. His clones return exactly on schedule, but the boy is sporting massive dark circles under his eyes after pulling an accidental all-nighter. While he is absolutely dying of exhaustion, his duplicates are completely energized. He just tells them to go shower and grab some food. While the clones strip off their armor, Sang reviews all his monster research, deciding to study mana control during this quick break. Just then, he gets a text from his agent saying he will arrive in exactly 10 minutes. The clones are happily stuffing their faces when he warns them to prepare for round 2. Right on cue, our hero meets up with his agent down at the building entrance. Fully geared up, the 3 clones emit a chilling pressure that both men instantly feel. Luckily, the highly efficient agent secured 3 different training grounds right next to each other. Sang thanks him but asks the agent to supervise alone this time. He is staying home to monitor them through his familiar link while practicing his own mana-breathing technique. The car pulls away to start the mission, leaving Sang behind to do his part. Striking a confident pose, he turns on some instructional audio guide to help him focus. He takes slow, careful breaths, sitting cross-legged on the floor. A vibrant blue aura erupts around him as his concentration reaches its peak. The audio guide advises him to recall the exact sensation of activating his skills. He locks onto the memory of using familiar link, remembering how raw energy flowed out of his body. Eyes closed, he feels that mysterious energy beginning to circulate. His breathing is completely controlled, perfectly in sync with the guide's voice. Suddenly, a warm spark ignites in his chest. The energy pools in his core, slowly expanding until his body feels like a vast universe containing endless constellations of power. He snaps his eyes open, riding the high of that incredible feeling. Boom. A system notification pops up, granting him a meditation skill that boosts mana recovery. Meanwhile, pay attention here, because things just took a dark turn. In another dungeon, a mangled hunter crawls through blood, wondering how such a monster could exist in a low E rank zone. A terrifying beast with jagged fangs is busy tearing apart an alien fish. Gasping for breath, the injured man realizes he must warn the authorities immediately. This creature is way beyond the level of this dungeon. Terrified, the man catches a glimpse of a shadow looming directly over him in his bracelet's reflection. The beast lunges forward to claim its prey, and a blood-curdling scream echoes outside. Just then, Junmo pulls up and opens his car door. He has arrived at the final training ground reserved for the clones. The agent warns that this place is crawling with alien fish armed with bone-crushing jaws. A clone steps out, and Junmo bids him good luck. Pulling out his phone, he shoots a quick text to Sang, confirming all 3 clones are safely deployed. Junmo is thrilled. Managing 3 solo hunts simultaneously is absolutely unheard of. If this goes well, it is going to turn the entire hunter industry completely upside down. Back home, Sang is feeling pretty proud of himself for unlocking the meditation technique, but his smile instantly vanishes when he realizes meditation and true mana breathing are 2 entirely different skills. Sighing, he realizes acquiring real mana breathing will take some serious work. Then his phone buzzes with a notification from the agent, confirming the clones have arrived on site. Let us check in on the action with him. Sang links his vision to see a giant rat getting its teeth bashed in, a sight so shocking he literally screams out loud. That is clone number 1, currently taking care of this massive, disgusting rodent. It seems his preparations paid off, and the online guides are working wonders. More vile pests swarm the area. Sang watches closely to test the tutorial's validity, remembering that these giant rats are infamous for being the most annoying F-rank monsters. The video instructor recommends hunting these creatures in a squad. However, if you are forced to go solo, there are specific tricks to survive. Since they only charge in straight lines, the key is keeping your distance and firing. That is exactly what clone number 1 does, maintaining range while unloading his weapon. But if bullets do not put them down, you are forced to engage in close quarters combat. Since their skulls are rock hard, the instructor suggests targeting their spine, and the clone executes this move perfectly. The pest is killed instantly. However, just like normal rodents, these monsters multiply at crazy speeds, meaning there are always tons of them. The instructor claims they are just free experience points if you study. Though, a commentator in the video complains that hitting a moving spine is actually incredibly difficult. But this clone is built entirely different. Bullet casings rain down as he unloads on the pack, landing perfect spine shots to clean up the horde without breaking a single sweat. Over in a desert zone, clone number 2 navigates the sand dunes. Suddenly, the earth shakes violently as a massive monster scorpion bursts from the ground. Inheriting Sang's techniques but absolutely zero human fear, these clones hunt relentlessly. They do not care about the enemy's level or get intimidated by raw power gaps. The duplicate easily crushes the giant beast, and Sang gets to absorb all that raw combat experience through his sensory link. System alerts flood his screen with endless notifications of victory. Meanwhile, Clone 3 is shredding alien fish, and as Sang's stats climb, his duplicates scale up too. Fired up, Sang makes it his goal to completely wipe out these F-rank dungeons today. Meanwhile, heavy footsteps echo through the blood-soaked hunting grounds. 2 passing hunters complain about how quiet the dungeon is today, having found 0 monsters. But as they approach a strange mountain ahead, they realize it is a giant pile of slaughtered carcasses. Eyeing the massive pile of remains, they wonder how much this haul is worth and decide to pack it all into boxes. Under a clear sky, the clone simply stands holding his weapon amidst the carnage. Sang knows the hunt is going smoothly, but he feels like he's forgotten something crucial. Then he completely panics when he suddenly remembers Hawk. He remembers the cleaning crew sweeping up those horned rabbit carcasses, realizing he has not collected a single piece of loot so far. Realizing his massive mistake, he quickly orders all 3 clones to stop what they are doing and gather those monster bodies. But what if someone else already swept them up? He begins to weep tears of pure regret. Just then, a brilliant flash of inspiration strikes him. He spots some alien fish carcasses that Clone 3 is leaving behind. The clone explains he did not kill those, but a greedy, Sang replies that honesty does not pay the bills since each corpse is worth serious cash. Reluctantly, the clone begins harvesting them. It's a brutal mess, chopped up like baby food by some unknown hunter. But trust me, as the clone gathers the remains, he's about to notice something incredibly strange. Let's jump into this crazy scene where he finds something else inside one of them. Song's eyes widen in sheer horror. It is not part of the fish, it is a rotting human arm. But as he digs through the dead monsters, something shifts behind clone number 3. Both of them notice the sudden movement, and Sang quickly warns him that they are not alone. Instantly, the clone grabs his weapon and stands alert. An enemy could be lurking, or maybe a thief wanting to steal their loot. Suddenly, a bizarre noise echoes right behind him. A chopped-up alien fish head drops right in front of him. Behind clone number 3, a massive eel-like sea monster is waiting. That fish head? It was just bait. Clone number 3 is no fool and spins around to face the ambush. But before he can react, his arm is ripped off as easily as a Lego piece. The poor clone is in total shock, flooded with pain and confusion. But here is the massive downside of using a summon skill: someone else is feeling every single bit of this agony. Sang screams at the top of his lungs, feeling the excruciating pain of losing his own arm. Then, the connection suddenly snaps, and he wakes up gasping from this waking nightmare. Shaking with terror, he checks his arm. It is still there, and he can move it normally. But the trauma of that moment is so overwhelming that he cannot even move, left huddled in a corner of his dark room. Once he calms down, he realizes the shock broke his connection, but there is no time to waste. He grabs his phone to call his agent. Junmo answers immediately, and Sang frantically asks where clone number 3 went to hunt. Sensing the sheer panic in Sang's voice, the agent reveals it was the sewage plant in Inchan. Desperate, Sang begs Junmo to bring clones number 1 and number 2 to that location immediately. He promises to explain everything once he gets there. but warns his agent that they have a massive, life-threatening situation on their hands. Pay close attention here, because poor clone number 3 is getting absolutely wrecked. This beast is not just a monster, it is a terrifying humanoid creature holding a massive sword. Clone number 3 cannot survive this brutal beating. He loses consciousness and collapses in front of the marine abomination, which just stares down at him with a cold, expressionless face. Sang slams the taxi door and runs. He is sweating, out of breath, and absolutely terrified of what he might find at the hunting ground. The treatment plan is massive, but Sang is completely cut off from clone number 3. Worse yet, his skill is on a long cooldown before he can use it again. After flashing his identity bracelet to the guards, he slips past the blockade. To his immense relief, his agent is already waiting for him. Meeting up, Sang sees clones number 1 and number 2 are ready. He quickly explains that number 3 vanished after encountering a powerful creature unlike any ordinary alien fish. It was a beast with a fish head, but the limbs of a powerful humanoid monster. Junmo is deeply shaken by this. He insists on alerting the authorities to lock down the area immediately. This D-rank threat is known as the Fishman, and a regular team of E-rank hunters would stand absolutely zero chance. Sang agrees to alert the guards, but with a catch. He orders his agent to wait until the clones enter the portal first, leaving Junmo completely bewildered by his plan. Scratching his neck, Sang smiles confidently and says they cannot just wait around. He asks his agent to put full trust in him, just as he trusts his own clones. Despite Junmo's worries, our main character concentrates and activates his summoning skill once more, linking up with his remaining clones, number 1 and number 2. Now, let's watch them enter the dense forest. Walking carefully, Sang sends them to the exact spot clone number 3 vanished. They are focused, armed, and ready for a brutal fight. Using silent hand gestures to keep quiet, they creep forward. Suddenly, a sickening sound of teeth tearing through raw flesh echoes from the shadows nearby. The clones spot the creature devouring an unlucky alien fish. This is the perfect opportunity for Sang to strike first, a lucky break he did not expect. Even though he is an E-rank hunter, his clones only get 53% of his stats, making them weak F ranks. But the beast is distracted, and his clones have excellent hunting skills. Deep down, Sang believes they can actually win this. He orders them to aim directly for the head, and the clones unleash a heavy barrage of gunfire. The bullets strike the beast's skull but fail to pierce its thick hide. The clones are left completely stunned, and Sang is just as shocked by the outcome. He quickly realizes that normal gunfire is useless. The attack only angered the toothy monster, which lets out a deafening roar and leaps high into the air like a flea. It crashes down between the two clones, who barely dive away. But one clone uses this dodge to set up a quick counterattack. Flipping over the giant head, he slashes his sword across its shoulder, leaving a minor cut. Sang is horrified. It is just a tiny scratch, and the monster is already retaliating. It whips around and swings. The blow smashes a nearby tree, missing the agile clone by a hair. Fighting in a dense forest makes wielding a giant sword incredibly difficult. While the other clone continues firing, the monster's blade gets wedged deep into the thick trunk. But the creature shatters the entire tree with raw physical force. Sang quickly tells his clones to disregard his previous thought this beast has absolutely no trouble fighting in the woods. This battle is turning out to be far more dangerous than Sang anticipated, but his fearless clones charge forward without hesitation, ready to strike. They slash at the beast's massive arm, but the blow does zero damage. Watching the fight, Sang realizes their basic attacks are completely useless. Clenching its jaw, the monster channels incredible force into its fist and punches one of the clones. Sang panics, wondering how on earth they can defeat such an unstoppable force. But then Sang remembers that their gunfire did have some small effect. One bullet ricocheted, but another actually cracked the hide. He gets an idea of focus all fire on that single, tiny weak spot. Using his keen skill, the clone strikes the exact same wound, making the beast howl in pain. It worked. Sang finally has a solid plan to win this. Unload every bullet they have. Despite the damage, the enraged beast lunges forward with a devastating punch. The clones leap back to dodge, continuing to spray gunfire onto the giant fish. Riddled with holes, the monster screams in agony as the plan actually works. But then, it grips its weapon tightly, and a blazing fire erupts along the entire blade, turning it into a sword of flames. With blood-red eyes full of pure rage, the beast raises its blazing sword, ready to slice the nearby clone to pieces. The clone barely blocks the slash with his arm, but the overwhelming impact rattles him. The creature's physical strength has suddenly surged to a terrifying new level. It wildly swings its flaming sword like someone swatting flies. And trust me, you and I are about to find out if that weapon is the key to its power. Alright, you and I are jumping right into the climax of a brutal boss fight. While Sang realizes the beast is temporarily powered up, his clone strikes its chest. But the fish monster charges back with savage fury, driving its sword straight into the clone's stomach. The blow is devastating. Since Sang is linked to his clone, he instantly feels that same agonizing pain rip through his own body. Gripping the blade inside him, the clone locks the beast in place. With a shaky voice, Sang admits he knew this would hurt like hell, but it is the only way. Unleashing a desperate scream, the clone whips out a dagger and lunges forward with every single ounce of strength he has left. Up close and personal, he repeatedly stabs the Titan's chest across 3 different spots. But this monster is a brute. It retaliates immediately, raising its massive, sharp claws to slash him back. But our clone is locked in, pure adrenaline pumping through his veins. He parries the strike with his bare arm and continues his relentless onslaught. Losing ground, the giant fish desperately struggles to create some distance between them. It raises a massive, heavy foot, launching a brutal kick that lands squarely on the boy, blasting the clone far away. Bleeding out, the boy clutches his ruptured stomach, barely hanging on. But the monster is relentless, charging right back at him with its sword ablaze. Just in time, the second clone leaps in front of the blow. Talk about perfect teamwork. Before the fish monster can strike, he lunges forward with his dagger bared. The tension is real, and the gap between them is dangerously tight. Blows are flying everywhere, but with a brilliant, synchronized move, both clones strike the monster's body at the exact same time. That double strike teaches the beast a painful lesson about teamwork. Now badly wounded and riddled with more holes than a piece of cheese, the monster's insane strength finally begins to fade. Its heavy knees buckle, hitting the ground with a massive thud. It crashes face first, completely defeated on the battlefield. Our clones are absolutely trash but victorious. They are so incredibly exhausted they cannot take another step. One of them collapses onto the dirt, staring blankly at his weapon. No more ammo. That's a wrap for today's raid. Sang feels like his body is shutting down, but suddenly, the clone spots something bizarre. Now pay close attention here, this is where things get really crazy. Bloody tracks paint the ground, and the clone freezes in sheer horror. Yes, we are not done yet, that monster is still alive. Sang orders clone number 2 to track the beast, only to realize the trail leads straight toward the dungeon's exit portal. Meanwhile, outside the gate, a guard blocks a hunter, warning him that a rogue monster has emerged. The hunter complains about wasting time gathering his raid party, but the guard refuses to let anyone pass. Juno watches the chaos, wishing Sang would just hurry the hell up. Suddenly, a bizarre sound echoes nearby. The local guards realize the portal is unstable and quickly call for backup to alert their chief. The wounded fish beast bursts out, rushing the portal with absolute rage. It does not have time for games, instantly readying a lethal attack on the guards. Guards open fire, desperately trying to halt the beast, but the bullets just bounce off its skin. Transforming its glowing blade, the giant fish rampages through the portal, absolutely decimating the defense forces who stand no chance. Back inside the dungeon, clone number 2 is locked in and ready to chase down the runner. He winds up, hurling his weapon with everything he has got, straight into the monster's back. At the same moment, Sang leaps through the portal, knife in hand, ready to strike. With a massive burst of speed, he drives his blade deep into the monster's temple right next to its eye. The beast shrieks in agony, while the surrounding soldiers stand frozen in absolute awe. Sang channels all his physical stats into his arms, using both hands to plunge the knife even deeper. I know what you were thinking. Can he actually pull this off? Yes. The soldiers watch in utter shock as our protagonist finally drags the massive beast down to the ground. Relieved, clone number 2 gives a thumbs up, crying tears of joy. Meanwhile, a goateed investigator in a tactical vest makes a quick call, promising a detailed report as soon as possible. Approaching the crowd, he spots something unbelievable. A D-rank boss monster lying unconscious on the ground, utterly battered. He instantly recognizes the infamous Fishman boss. A soldier asks if he is from the Hunter Association, and he nods, demanding to know what went down. Shaken, the soldier explains that a hunter trapped inside before the lockdown took the boss down. Confused, the investigator asks if a D-rank hunter was on site, but the guard has absolutely no clue. Skeptical, the investigator demands more details. The current reports are wild, apparently. A lowly F-rank rookie and his clones pulled off this impossible raid alone. He hides his shock, but he is stunned. An F-rank defeating a D-rank boss? Even crazier, every single blow was targeted at one specific weak point. Sang bypassed his lack of high-tier gear through pure tactical precision. The investigator is left wondering how anyone could strike a moving target so perfectly. Casting a cold glare at our hero and his agent, The investigator heads toward the gate to scan for any leftover threats. The massive fishman corpse lies totally motionless behind them. Even in death, its giant, creepy eyes stare blankly. Walking away, the agent worries about what to report, while Sang happily checks his new loot. First up is Dash, boosting his speed. Then comes Projectile, which cranks up his damage whenever he is using a gun. He also unlocks Regeneration and a heavy strike skill that concentrates all of his power into a single blow. Best of all, his basic stats just got a major upgrade. As he tends to his wounds, Sang realizes he just hit the absolute jackpot with these skills. He wonders if his clones survived that beatdown thanks to his new healing passive. Letting his clones heal naturally is a genius move to level up his regeneration stat. When his agent praises him for soloing a D rank, Sang gets a bit flustered. Junmo suggests that Sang could easily clear E-rank gates completely solo now, but our boy has his eyes on a different prize. He walks over to the corpse, remembering how the boss's sword drank up its own blood like a parasite. Sang reaches for the weapon, recalling how the beast went berserk with glowing red eyes once the sword tasted that blood. But before he can touch it, Junmo warns him to let a clone handle it, fearing it is cursed. Panicked, Sang wonders if he is banned from using it. His agent explains that cursed gear can sell for a fortune depending on its stats, which instantly gets Sang hyped. They agree to retrieve it later, letting the cleanup crew handle the corpse. Remembering another item, Sang asks if the strange crystal he dug out of the monster's skull is worth anything. He pulls it out, and Junmo's jaw hits the floor. It's a glowing, fist-sized red core, but unfortunately, it is just a low-tier stone. In other words, total trash. Sang looks so excited that Junmo feels terrible breaking the bad news. So what do you and I learn from this? Never get your hopes up too high. Poor Sang's dreams of quick cash are instantly crushed. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the story. As his agent explains, those other items are actually worth a fortune, telling our main character not to worry. So, he gladly hands over collection duty and thanks him. Back at his sweet home, our main character opens the door. His exhausted clones are literally leaning on each other just to walk. They finally make it inside, barely believing they survived. He decides to summon clone number 3 and tells the other 2 to rest. Sang concentrates to activate his skill, summoning another helper. And just like that, a brand new Sang appears right in front of him. He hands the clone his gear and sends him off to train, then quickly changes his own disgustingly dirty clothes. Sitting on the floor, he gets ready to inspect his loot, a sword and a stat-boosting stone. These are the items he secured himself. He picks up the stone, searches on his phone, and finds out it is his strength gem. Just as his agent explained, humans can't use this, and if a summon uses it, they turn into a monster. Even though it boosts strength by 0.005, that scary side effect really bothers our boy. He knows that injuries or stats on his clones normally don't affect him, but there's still a lingering, terrifying chance that the one transforming into a monster might actually be him. He immediately imagines a hilarious, awful scene. He gets an alligator head and calls his agent. The terrified agent panics and shoots him right in the head. Total chaos. So, he puts the stone back down and decides to hold off for now. Turning his attention back to his new sword, he suddenly remembers some crucial advice his agent gave him. Always have a clone touch weapons first in case they are cursed. It was safe in its box, but he wants to test it once before selling. So, he orders clone number 2, who is in the best shape, to grab the sword. Obeying his master, the clone approaches the box, reaches out, and lifts the weapon high in the air. Sang watches closely, deeply impressed. Now, pay attention here because things get creepy. Number 2 didn't explode or turn into a frog, but he hears a weird voice. Sang wonders if it is the sword, so he activates his familiar skill to listen in. It is a hideous, rapid voice demanding death and blood. The sound is so incredibly loud and jarring that it forces his familiar skill to deactivate instantly. The boy's ears are literally ringing. Even though it is painfully loud, the voice does not seem to bother the clone. Sang wonders if he could handle it himself, but decides to let his clone keep using it for now. Suddenly, a system window pops up, showing that his regeneration rate has officially increased. Looking at his resting clones, our protagonist realizes this helps his regeneration. But he cannot take them out hunting while they are completely exhausted. Instead, he orders them to meditate today to finally unlock mana breathing. The boy closes his eyes to begin meditating, deciding he will finally return to campus tomorrow. The next day, we see the college campus where Sang goes to school. Several students are walking around peacefully, just living their everyday lives. Heading back to his study routine, Sang feels like his vacation went by too fast. He checks his status screen, realizing he was just too busy leveling up. During that break, his stats shot through the roof, thanks to his clones who literally never rest. Lost in thought, he continues walking down the college hallway. He realizes he is still a lonely nerd when nobody approaches to chat. But as he steps inside the classroom, something catches his eye. His buddy, Kim Jong-go, is sitting at a desk, waiting patiently. Both of them say at the exact same time how surprised they are to be in this class. Kim explains he only signed up because the professor is known to be an easy grader. He gets closer and asks if Sang is still working out. Nearby, a couple of girls whisper in total shock, wondering if that handsome guy is really Sang, who used to be so chubby. Suddenly, all the girls in the room are gossiping about him, some even planning to ask him out. Kim chuckles, teasing that he is popular now. Sang finally realizes why everyone was too intimidated to greet him. Now, I know what you were thinking. Did he really change that much? Pointing to his face, Sang asks his friend, who replies that even his own parents wouldn't recognize him. Stunned, Sang admits he was planning to visit them. Kim adds that he almost passed him on the street without noticing. The big guy then suggests grabbing drinks after class with some friends, but Sang reveals he already has other plans. This causes his massive friend to squeal like a schoolgirl in absolute shock. Our protagonist explains that he has already made a promise, so he cannot go out tonight. Yelling loud enough to alert the whole campus, Kim asks if he's meeting a girl, making everyone in the classroom stare at them. Turns out, his old buddies Chan Woo and Jong Song are in this class too. Kim keeps yelling about remembering this historic day, even as the professor walks in. Meanwhile, at the World Hunter Association, also known as the WHA, a dark prophecy of disaster is delivered by the Oracle. President Michael Harris demands more details, only to be told that a massive portal is predicted to open, allowing hundreds of deadly monsters to invade. When Harris asks about the exact location and date, he is warned that this massive A-rank monster invasion is set to hit South Korea. Elsewhere, a man in a sharp suit named Park Wante, the owner of the country's third-ranked guild, arrives for a high-stakes meeting. He is instantly headbutted by a female guild master named Mayo. She teasingly accuses Park Wante of growing a mustache just to flirt with her, admitting she actually finds it quite appealing. After that bizarre greeting, they head inside the meeting room. Waiting there is a member of the Haezong Guild, the very same arrogant man who previously mocked Sang. He immediately insults another guild member about their recent run to Odin's Tower, smugly asking if their team failed to return or if their results were just pathetic. A white-haired man tries to defuse the situation, telling him this isn't the place for trash talk. The insulted hunter is furious, but their tense standoff is cut short when an elderly man enters. This old man is the leader of the Korean Hunter Association. Everyone quickly takes their seats as he thanks them for coming before dropping a grim warning about the impending disaster. Asked about when it will happen, he explains they have no specifics, only that A-rank monsters and a deadly curse are coming somewhere in Korea. One guild master slams his fist on the table, demanding how they're supposed to protect an entire country. The leader calmly replies that planning for this is exactly why they are here. Everyone is anxious, arguing they barely have enough hunters for daily dungeons, let alone guarding a whole nation. That's when one member raises his hand and proposes a strategy. He suggests that every guild patrol a specific territory. If a portal opens, all forces must immediately converge on that location without exception. Any guild that fails to cooperate will face severe punishment. The leader asks if there are any objections, and the plan is unanimously approved. Later, after leaving his college, Sang spots a female student being cornered by an annoying guy. The pushy guy is desperately trying to get her number, throwing out cheap compliments, but she totally shuts him down, bluntly telling him he is way too ugly. Noticing Sang walking by, she quickly pretends he is her boyfriend to escape. Clinging tightly to his arm, they walk away together as she explains the guy was bothering her, which is why she lied about them being a couple. She also quickly points out that she's actually single. Looking at her cute outfit, Sang wonders why she is not wearing her usual school uniform today. She happily replies that it is her birthday, asking why he is staring so hard. That is when Sang remembers he already has her number because he is literally her teacher. And trust me, you and I would celebrate too, because Sang just got an alert that he made another 50 million won. He tells her to order whatever she wants at a luxury steakhouse, leaving her shocked by the prices. What a baller move. All right. You and I are jumping right into a wild story where a simple dinner turns into a nightmare as an emergency warning suddenly flashes across the restaurant television. The news anchor reports that a massive monster portal breach is underway in South Korea, hitting their area directly. Meanwhile, Sang's college buddies are complaining about him skipping their party, joking that he must be on a hot date. Speak of the devil. Sang walks in looking completely pleased with himself. Right then, a loud disaster alert blares on everyone's phones. Sang runs into his friends, who immediately start teasing him about ditching the guys for his secret girlfriend. The poor girl next to him turns bright red. Sang quickly clears the air, explaining she's just his student and he was treating her as a thank you for helping him out earlier. After introductions, his buddy Dalidal hands the student a premium gift pack of meat, telling her to take it home and enjoy it with her family. She politely thanks him, while Sang's friends watch in awe of how naturally cool he acts. The student looks a bit bummed that their sweet date is ending so soon. Sang reminds her that her parents must be worried sick with that emergency alert active. His friends want to keep hanging out, but Sang firmly insists that everyone needs to head home right now. The group splits up. Walking home, Sang notices people drinking and laughing outside of bars, making him pause and wonder if he is just being totally paranoid about the warning. Suddenly, his phone rings. It is Genmo, asking if he saw the emergency broadcast. Sang confirms it and immediately asks for the real scoop on what is happening. Genmo drops a bombshell. This alert is going to last for 3 whole months because they have no idea where the portals will spawn. Now pay attention here, because we are talking about highly lethal A-rank beasts dropping right into the capital, causing absolute devastation. Sang is completely shocked, demanding to know why the public is being left in the dark about this. Genmo explains the harsh reality. Shutting down the economy for 3 months would completely ruin the nation. Sang listens, finally realizing the dark truth behind the government's quiet approach. It is a classic cover-up. The Hunter Association is keeping things vague just to escape blame, so they can say they warned everyone if things go sideways. Genmo warns Sang to find a secure shelter since all dungeons are locked down. Hanging up, Sang checks his summon status. Clone number 1 is totally fine, but clone number 2 is severely beaten up, though still standing. Seeing that his skill cooldown has finally reset, Sang decides to bring back clone number 1. He despawns the old clone and summons a fresh, fully powered one. Sang rushes to his parents' place. But when he walks in and calls out, his mother is completely baffled. Thanks to his upgraded, glowing appearance, he literally has to introduce himself as Sang Woo before she recognizes him. His dad has to squint hard to believe his eyes. Just then, his sister, Hyung-do, struts in, immediately nagging him about not greeting her, the second he walked through the door. To be fair, Sang barely recognized her either. As his mom welcomes him in, she points at the creepy masked guys standing behind him. Sang laughs and explains they are his clones. The exact duplicates step into the living room. Sang confesses the truth about his cloning ability, revealing that he awakened as a hunter just a month ago. His mother is stunned, never imagining her boy would join the ranks of hunters. Meanwhile, his sister is absolutely thrilled, while his dad calmly accepts that they now have a powerful hero in the house. Sang explains he is tired of hiding his powers, but his mom cuts him off instantly, panicking about how incredibly dangerous the life of a hunter is. To calm her down, Sang explains that his clones handle all the brutal frontline combat while he stays perfectly safe. With the family finally relaxed, Sang immediately tells them to pack up because they need to evacuate. He warns them that a massive crisis is unfolding and they must head to a shelter. However, his old man is highly skeptical about the sudden urgency of it all. His dad complains about work tomorrow, completely dismissing the threat. By the next morning, Sang realizes his family has absolutely no idea how terrifying this situation actually is. I know what you are thinking, they have zero clue about the danger. Since they are taking their sweet time packing, Sang decides he has to stay home to protect them. He lies, claiming his university classes were canceled for the day. Later that evening, the family starts cooking up a delicious feast with the premium meat Sang brought home. His sister asks if his clone friends want to join the dinner. Sang deadpans that they only get plain rice, joking that he is not wasting expensive meat on his own summons. The poor clones are handed literal buckets of white rice while the family enjoys juicy steaks. Over dinner, his sister giggles, asking if he will double his weight with 4 versions of him eating. Sang chuckles, saying his enhanced hunter body burns crazy amounts of calories. It is a warm, beautiful family moment, and everyone is happy to finally be together after so long. Suddenly, boom. A violent explosion rocks the entire neighborhood, blasting Sang to the floor. When he struggles to his feet, he is horrified to see their home completely blown open. Peering outside, the streets are crawling with horrific beasts. Then a colossal, dragon-like monster descends from the heavens, turning the chaos into absolute hell. The beast charges up a searing energy blast, unleashing a devastating beam that vaporizes everything in its path. Sang looks back in terror, finding his entire family knocked out cold. He spots the shattered armor of clone number 1, realizing it shielded them with its life. Nearby, clone number 2 and number 3 crawl out of the rubble, with number 3 missing an entire arm. With one heavily battered clone and another completely disarmed, Sang wakes his father. He urgently points toward the sky, explaining that a massive monster portal has ruptured right above them. The streets are a total war zone, Green beasts are devouring screaming citizens, cars are flattening terrified people, and flying predators are snatching civilians right off the pavement. Sang quickly packs emergency supplies and straps a protective chest piece onto his sister. She tearfully asks if the one-armed clone is okay, and Sang reassures her that it feels no pain. Suddenly, another massive impact shakes the ground as a beast plunges from above. The portal is literally hanging in the clouds, dropping bloodthirsty monsters straight onto the city like rain. Luckily, their floor is still structurally intact. Sang quickly executes the dazed beast, instantly refilling his mana pool. He tries the exit door, but the frame is completely bent shut. Sang tells his dad to stand back. Grabbing a heavy steel bar, he activates his strike skill and delivers a devastating kick, blasting the jammed door clean off its hinges. Stepping out reveals an absolute graveyard of burning cars and dead monsters. Sang turns to his father, asking how far they are from the nearest shelter. His dad estimates it is about 2 kilometers, but points out a literal army of slimes, skeletons, and giant stone golems blocking their only escape route. His sister pipes up, remembering an old underground tunnel that might bypass the horde. But as they start moving, a desperate cry rings out. Nearby, a survivor is pinned under a collapsed wall with a deadly D-rank troll looming over him. His father begs him to keep a cold head, arguing they cannot afford to play hero when their own lives are at risk. Sang grinds his teeth, totally torn between saving the stranger and protecting his own. And that is where we leave it, with his forces depleted and his family's survival on the line. Trust me, you are going to want to see how he survives this. All right, you and I are diving straight into the chaos as a trapped man screams for his mother. Nearby, Sang's heart is hammering while his mom begs him to run, but he tells them to head downstairs, lock the door, and trust clone number 3 for protection. He says clone number 2 is coming with him. His sister screams, calling him insane for putting their entire family in danger. But Sang reminds her he is a hunter, he does not run. Grabbing a simple wooden stick, he charges the massive troll and drives it right into its eye. He orders number 2 to get the wounded man to safety, because a hunter's only job is putting monsters down. Sang roars a challenge at the beast, but terrifyingly, another creature watching from afar mimics his words, showing it actually has intelligence. While the battle rages, clone number 2 desperately clears heavy rocks to free the trapped victim, asking him if he can still walk. The survivor nods, stunned he is even alive. Facing down the towering troll, Sang orders his clone to grab a weapon, tossing him a mysterious item called the Devil's Rock and telling him to eat it. As soon as he swallows it, clone number 2 mutates into a terrifying red demon wielding a sword. Sang asks if they are still on the same side, and the creature confirms his loyalty. The giant troll freezes, completely baffled by the mutation. Meanwhile, Sang feels his raw strength stats skyrocket instantly with absolutely zero side effects. He gets ready to take on the beast alone. The troll drags its massive mace across the pavement and hurls a boulder, but Sang dodges it easily. The monster swings its massive hand and a giant blade, severely wounding the red clone. But as the troll strikes again, Sang charges straight ahead, realizing this beast is way slower than his previous opponent. He lands a heavy blow on its face, but the monster's hand instantly regenerates to block him before swatting Sang away. Realizing that crazy self-healing is the real problem, Sang orders his second clone to target the creature's legs. The clone slices deep into the troll's leg muscle, dropping the giant to one knee. Seizing the opening, Sang drives his weapon straight through both of the beast's eyes. The clone targets the other leg to completely lock it down. The massive beast crashes to the ground, thrashing and screaming in what sounds like pure terror. While Sang hesitates to listen to the creature, his strike skill suddenly triggers, crushing the monster's skull. With the battle finally over, Sang and his clones collapse in pure exhaustion. A system window pops up showing massive stat gains, but there's a catch: the recoil has completely shattered Sang's hand. Forcing himself up, he declares he has to find his sister, then notices his phone is missing and demands his clone return it. Now pay attention, because this is where the scale goes absolutely off the charts. Massive explosions rock the area as spaceships swarm the sky, armies deploy, and a colossal Godzilla-like beast tears the city apart. Devastating rank 9 magic from the elite Red Flame Guild slams directly into the beast's head. High-ranking hunters, including a smug powerhouse named Magnor, charge into the fray. An announcement echoes from an arriving vessel as a massive hatch slides open, and Park Kwon-ta, the legendary leader of a top 3 guild, steps out. Below, tanks lock their heavy cannons onto the target. A panicked hunter runs up to the newcomers, shouting that the giant beast is slipping away and too many squads are already clustered around it. He suggests they target something else. Meanwhile, the war zone is covered in bodies and golden armor, with some survivors celebrating their survival while others weep over their losses. One guy is actually smirking despite just losing his teammate, a total scumbag. Nearby, a desperate group of survivors is cornered by a hostile gang, but Sang and his clones stand firmly as their shield. Watching from a distance, Park Won-ta is impressed by Sang's sheer grit, but he knows that with only two clones assisting him, the kid cannot survive this onslaught alone. He orders his squad to move north and prepare for a rescue. A teammate activates high-tech wing gear, and they deploy to help, fully aware of how bad Sang's situation is. After bringing down another massive beast, Sang is completely spent. Spotting a mother and daughter nearby, he urges the civilians to run to the underground shelter while he holds the line. The crowd begs him to come, warning he will die, but Sang orders his second clone to cover their retreat. As they flee, vicious goblins ambush them, and Sang leaps in to save a helpless man. The struggle is brutal since his energy is bottomed out, leaving him unable to activate his best skills. To make matters worse, a flock of massive, dark bird monsters swoops down. Sang barely dodges a blast of fiery smoke launched by one of the birds. The blast heads straight for the defenseless civilians, forcing Sang to order his clone to act as a human shield. Before the beast can strike again, a massive, majestic tiger drops from above and crushes it instantly. Totally drained of energy, Sang's vision goes dark and he collapses. Waking up, he sees a powerful warrior standing over him. With a casual flick of his blade, a nearby monster's head rolls to the floor. This is Park Won-ta, the legendary guild leader. The stranger asks if everyone is okay, while Sang weakly demands to know his identity. Meanwhile, down in the bunker, Sang's sister frantically insists she has to go find him. But clone number 3 blocks her path, stating he has no orders to let her out. She tries pushing past, but his grip is like steel. Her parents beg her to stop, but she cries out that something must be terribly wrong since Sang is not back yet. Her father tells her he finally understands Sang is a hunter now and they have to trust him. Suddenly, loud banging rattles the shelter door as someone outside screams for help. Now, watch closely here. The bunker requires a private passcode, but Sang's sister, desperately hoping for a message from her brother, hits the release button and opens the door. A bloody survivor rushes inside, but his eyes are vacant. It's a trap. The intruder is a Class B parasite known as a screaming firefly. The bunker erupts into pure panic as everyone runs for their lives, leaving Sang's sister cornered by the beast. Instantly, the one-armed clone number 3 steps in to shield her. He tries to drive a blade into the monster's forehead, but the strike misses and he gets impaled. Horrifyingly, the beast's attack drives straight through the clone and pierces the sister too. Her parents scream in agony as she collapses to the cold floor. Summoning his final strength, clone number 3 grabs a weapon, triggers the fire sealing system, kicks the monster out, and locks the door. Back on the battlefield, Park Won-ta approaches the exhausted young man. He apologizes for arriving so late and offers a hand up, leaving Sang awestruck by the sheer power radiating from him. Sang introduces himself and bows in deep gratitude. In response, Park Won-ta warmly thanks the rookie hunter for risking his own life to save so many citizens. The crowd showers Sang with praise, but he humbly brushes it off. Smiling, Park Won-ta tells him to relax, though he secretly wonders about this kid's identity after witnessing him teleport right as they arrived. He casually asks if Sang is a licensed hunter. Sang confirms he is, but admits he is brand new to the job, prompting the veteran to ask about his specific ability. Sang hesitates, reluctant to reveal his secret, but feels deeply indebted to his savior. Just as he prepares to speak, his mental connection to clone number 3 suddenly snaps. Sensing the horrific truth, Sang snatches a fallen sword from the dirt. He screams that his family is in mortal danger and bolts back toward the shelter, leaving Park Won-ta to secure the area. The guild leader orders his rescue squad to stay behind and protect the survivors. Meanwhile, as Sang sprints at absolute full speed, the demonic sword in his hand begins whispering dark thoughts of murder. He fights to keep his sanity while activating his dash skill. Elsewhere, a mustached soldier fires a burning round at a massive beast to zero effect, and trust me, you and I need to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are jumping right into a brutal battle where standard hunter attacks mean absolutely nothing to this beast. Even a poison-laced sword cannot pierce its steel-like hide. The hunters realize they need teamwork to survive, but right on cue, some arrogant jerk shows up and completely trash-talks the idea of cooperating. When they ask what he is doing there, he laughs it off, saying he is only here for the money. With his level of power, who needs allies? He unleashes a massive skill, resembling a deadly meteor shower. Meanwhile, inside the shelter, Sang's desperate father tries to stop his daughter's bleeding, begging for any kind of medical help. Her mother panics as the girl slips closer to death. Suddenly, sparks fly from the shelter's heavy sealed door. Something terrifying is burning its way straight inside. A small wounded monster crawls into the room. Terrified, the daughter tells her father to run. The cursed firefly monster begins speaking through the girl, using her voice to beg for its life. The parents stay frozen, just as Sang finally arrives and locks eyes with his father. To his dad, Sang looks completely possessed. Seeing his bleeding little sister on the floor makes Sang snap, his calm face twisting into pure, unbridled rage. Sang charges and slices off one of the beast's arms in a flash. But he takes a heavy hit too, writhing in pain while the creature laughs at him. Just like before, the bloody sword is making its wielder lose control, driving his mind deeper into complete madness. Now, pay attention here because things get incredibly intense. The multi-legged nightmare closes in on Sang, but thankfully his colleagues rush in to save him just in time. Sang collapses into Wante's arms, unconscious. Wante immediately launches a devastating flying kick that blasts the monster back. The female hunter warns that Sang's wounds are critical. It is bad. Sang's arm is gone, and he is entering a wild berserk state. She tries a desperate mana transfer, but his condition keeps getting worse. Wante asks if he will make it, but her answer is grim. She tells him to put the beast down now. With his last breath, Sang weakly speaks. He points toward his sister, begging them to save her instead of him. Wante looks him in the eye and promises that they will both make it out alive. He tells Sang to rest, promising to handle everything. Sang passes out. Over at the Hunter Association, total panic erupts as crowds demand an immediate evacuation. Before any official warning can go out, the leader of the #1 guild arrives for an emergency meeting. This guild master demands they keep the public in the dark to avoid a massive citywide shutdown. He warns that since they do not know the exact timing, a premature panic would destroy the economy and the association would take the blame. The president asks for his solution. The guild leader calmly suggests they simply hide the truth about these monsters from the citizens. That way, if anyone dies, it is their own fault for not leaving. The president is horrified, pointing out that thousands of innocent people will die. The guild leader shrugged, saying those deaths do not matter. To him, anyone who is unawakened or below D rank is basically trash anyway. He grips the president's shoulder, making it clear this is not a request. Later, we see Sang taking it easy and eating snacks while his shadow clones do all his intense training. A guy named Jun Mo calls him up, warning him not to rely entirely on clones. He says Sang is throwing away his shot at becoming a top-tier hunter. I know what you were thinking, but check this out. Our protagonist does not even want to be a hero, he is only in this for the cold, hard cash. Jun Mo is stunned, asking if greed is really a good enough reason to live like this. That night, Sang has a horrific nightmare. He sees his dead family, including his little sister, begging him to save her. He wakes up drenched in sweat and exhausted. Wante is sitting by his bed, telling him to take it easy and not to move around too much. Sang groans from the intense pain. Wante explains that the doctor said it was a miracle he survived such a deep, devastating wound. Sang tries to thank him, but Wante brushes it off, saying they have some very important things to discuss later. Suddenly, his panicked parents burst into the room, crying out to know if their daughter is gone. The doctor explains that while Sang's surgery went well, he still needs close monitoring. They tell Sang he has been asleep for 4 days since the gate opened. The boss monsters are dead, but Sang admits he remembers absolutely nothing about what happened before passing out. He asks where his sister is, but the entire room goes dead silent. As everyone looks down, Sang demands to know why they are all quiet. Is she hospitalized too? The doctor finally explains that while they patched her physical wounds, she was infected by a lethal mana virus from the beast. This virus slowly drains the victim's life force. Normally, it dies instantly if it clashes with incompatible mana traits, making it harmless. But if a person's mana matches the virus perfectly, it is a permanent death sentence. Sang desperately asks how to cure it, but the doctor has only bad news. There is no standard cure. His only real hopes are a legendary S-class healer named Bless or incredibly rare artifacts from inside the dungeon. Both options cost a massive, unimaginable fortune. Hearing this, Sang is crushed by guilt. He hates himself for playing hero instead of protecting his own family. He realizes things would be different if he had Wante's incredible strength or the power to save everyone. Sometime later, a young girl visits his hospital room. He asks if her family made it to safety, and she nods. She explains she got his contact details from a friend after hearing about his injuries. She wishes him a fast recovery, mentioning she still has so much to learn from him. Sang cuts her off, saying he has something major to tell her. He looks her in the eye and announces he is dropping out of college. 2 weeks pass, and Sang is already out of the hospital, recovering at an unbelievably fast rate that shocks his doctors. Before leaving, He had explained his sister's condition and told her he could no longer tutor her. He apologized for the abrupt change, and she quietly accepted it before walking away for good. She warned Sang that he will deeply regret cutting her out of his life. She plans to go to his college anyway, find a new boyfriend, and move on completely without him. She snaps at him, telling him not to come crawling back later. Sang ignores her empty threats and focuses entirely on his next goal, clearing high-level dungeons. While riding in a cab, he researches the leader of the famous Canis Guild before finally arriving at their massive, imposing headquarters. And that is where we leave him. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next when he tries to bypass security to meet the captain. Let's jump into a story where Sang explains the captain invited him, but the receptionist still demands a strict appointment. But before she can finish, a massive bearded guy cuts in. He asks Sang to verify his identity, and Sang confirms he is indeed the guy they are looking for. The big guy tells the receptionist to let Sang through since he is an expected guest. He tells Sang the captain is waiting, leading him to a room where the leader stands, staring intently at a painting. Following a quick knock, someone announces Sang has arrived, and the captain immediately waves him inside. The captain is relieved to see Sang safe and sound, asking how he healed so fast. Sang replies that the captain's quick rescue was the only reason his injuries were not way worse. The captain brushes off the compliment, saying anyone would have done the same. But Sang disagrees, pointing out that what the captain did went way beyond just doing his job. He explains that the captain saved his entire family, making sure they got instant medical treatment. Because of that, a basic thank you just is not going to cut it. So Sang asks what the real motive is behind all this heavy support: the VIP hospital room, financial aid for his parents, and the advanced intensive care unit for his sister, Jiu. Hearing this, the captain tightens his fist. He admits that he also has a sister, one who recently vanished alongside her entire raid squad. He saw his own pain and Sang's struggle to save his sister. Sang is grateful, but still confused, prompting him to ask why the captain summoned him so shortly after waking up. The captain demands to know about the hidden power Sang kept secret. He asked point blank if those clones are real physical bodies, remembering the one that shielded a civilian. Sang admits that is indeed his ability, claiming he never meant to hide it. With that cleared up, the captain gets straight to the point: he needs Sang's help. He wants Sang to help rescue the first team of the Canis Guild. This is not about collecting a debt, he simply believes only Sang can save his sister and her crew. The powerful captain actually bows to Sang. This heavy gesture immediately takes Sang back to his own desperate moments, begging someone to save his sister. Realizing it is his turn to pay it forward, Sang agrees to help. Now pay attention here, because this is where his brutal training at a special facility begins. The captain explains that even though rescues are usually rushed, they have some time. His sister has a skill that can produce survival supplies for up to 8 months. But the danger is real. The dungeon is a high-level zone, so deadly that even a team of B-rank hunters got trapped inside. Sang understands the massive stakes, but the captain delivers some harsh truth. Sang is simply not strong enough yet. His current stats are way too low, and he can no longer coast on raw combat instinct alone because that aspect has already hit its absolute limit. Sang is completely stunned by this. Later, his friend Jimit gets worried when Sang asks for a hunting break and goes totally radio silent, only to reappear, looking absolutely battered. Jimit asks what on earth happened. Sang admits he got thrashed and explains the situation. Jimit wonders how Sang is perfectly fine, considering his sister was the one infected by the dungeon. Sang confirms he is completely fine and reveals he officially took on a mission for Kina's guild. Once Jimit understands, Sang asks him to register his contact info under clone number 2 since his phone was destroyed. Jimit suggests backing up the old device, but Sang flatly refuses. When Jimit asks how he expects to talk to his friends now, Sang claims this is for the best. Jimit then presses him about who actually caused those brutal injuries. Sang explains he is sparring with a guy named Wan Ta. Worried sick by his state, Jimit offers to file a complaint to the guild about this insanely harsh training. Sang stops him, saying he understands Wa is desperate to rescue his sister. He also shares a plan to bring his clones into the mix. The next day, Sang brings one clone to spar with Wa, and yeah, both of them get totally wrecked. The next day, he brings 2 clones, and all 3 get beaten. The day after, he brings 3 clones, and all 4 get crushed again. Jimit speaks with Sang and his bruised clones. Sang admits that Wa is just overwhelmingly strong. I know what you're thinking. Just copy his moves, right? Well, the power gap is too massive. But after some thought, Sang gets a wild idea and asks Genma to let him try it. Genma agrees without even knowing what the crazy plan is. The following morning, Wa mocks Sang and his clones, asking if they are tired of tasting defeat. But then he notices something strange. Sang gave his clones a special drug supplied by Gmet. Ready for round 2, the buff clones face him, leaving Wa totally shocked at what Sang did to them. Sang tells him to shut up and just fight. After clashing a few times, Wan realizes this spar is not going to be the easy cakewalk he originally expected. He notes that while the clones usually only have half of Sang's power, this booster drug has pushed them near his peak. But after landing a solid counter, Wa points out that they traded their precision for raw strength. Sang cuts through his foes, reminding himself he has not turned into a monster. He suddenly pulls a gun and fires, but his target shrugs off the bullet effortlessly. The enemy fires back, mocking that a simple mana bullet cannot scratch him. Refusing to back down, Sang pulls off an incredibly complex, high-speed maneuver. Even so, Sang still gets beaten down. The victor explains that brute force is not enough. You have to concentrate your mana to truly become one with your blade. Even though he is just a C-rank hunter, Sang refuses to stop pushing himself. This drive does not come from cheap advice, but from the crushing helplessness he felt when he first woke up in that hospital bed. Back then, he had to leave his family's survival completely in someone else's hands, and that dark memory changed something deep inside of him forever. Hating his past weakness, he swore to keep climbing. 6 months later, at the Silong Station hunting grounds, a poor hunter is violently smashed straight into the dirt. Some thugs try to force their way in just as a guardian arrives. One idiot complains that he paid his entrance fee, but the guard quickly laughs in his face. The guard declares that these hunting grounds are owned by the powerful Silver Moon Guild. Suddenly, Sang steps up, dropping one thug with a single strike and asking why they are messing with guild business. Furious, the remaining thugs surround Sang. They brag about being D-rank hunters, mocking him and asking if he seriously thinks he can take them all on alone. Sang just smiles, asking who said he was alone, before summoning his entire clone squad. They absolutely decimate the arrogant hunters in seconds. Meanwhile, Wana pays an unexpected late-night visit to Junmo. And asks why he is here, Wana hands over a highly confidential business document. Wa remarks that Sang is growing so ridiculously fast he seems like a different species. Junmo asks if he is finally ready to execute their master plan. He had a backup plan, but Sang's growth is monstrous. His strength jumped from 1.44 to 19, his regeneration rose from 0, and trust me, you and I are about to see what happens next. Alright, let's dive back in. Wen decides it is time to start the rescue, especially knowing Sang's clones are way stronger than their raw stats show. Over at the dungeon gate, Sang is already throwing hands with a bunch of guys. A guard tries to break it up, but Sang just shrugs and says they started it. Then he casually orders his clones to smash their phones so they can't call for backup. Seeing the beatdown, other hunters decide to steer clear and find another dungeon. Meanwhile, inside the Sealed Dong Station hunting grounds, Sang runs into a guy holding a shiny gem who claims he's a collector. The man recognizes Sang instantly, but Sang is not here to be friendly. He immediately calls him out for being way too weak for a rank D dungeon with such trash gear. That's when Sang spots another player scavenging nearby and realizes the Silver Moon Guild trapped them here. He doesn't show any pity, demanding they spill everything right now. To prove the guild thugs outside aren't a threat anymore, he whips out a photo showing the beaten-up hunters at the gate. The scavenger is completely blown away that Sang wrecked rank D hunters, but Sang shuts him up and demands answers again. The guy explains that inside this dungeon, monsters fight each other, and the Silver Moon Guild traps weak players inside to steal the leftover gems. To get out, they're forced to hit a ridiculous quota, trapping them in endless debt. Even worse, if anyone dies while scavenging, the guild just covers it up. Hearing this, Sang tells the guy he is free to go. The grateful collector turns to leave, but Sang stops him cold, demanding he hand over the gem. Sang takes the prize and tosses it to clone number 1, ordering him to eat it. With the coast clear, Sang starts gathering gems himself until a terrified person comes running from a massive rank C monster. Just as the beast is about to strike, Sang shoves them out of the way. The survivor gasps and asks who he is, and Sang simply replies that he's their savior. But as the beast closes in, the survivor panics, accusing Sang of bringing the monster right to them. Sang tells them to chill out. But when they notice his clone's jacked physique, they try to bolt again. Sang grabs them tight, blocking their escape and demanding some real answers. Now pay attention while everyone else is screaming in terror. Sang's clones are already blowing this beast sky high. Sang doesn't even blink when one of his clones gets taken down. He just looks at it and asks how it lost after eating so many power gems. He orders the clone to stay put, grumbling about all the resources he invested. Then, with absolute focus, Sang draws a cursed sword and slices off one of the monster's arms. He unleashes a relentless flurry of slashes on the female monster. completely throwing her off. But suddenly, the blade's dark curse triggers a traumatic memory of the beast that slaughtered his sister. Sang struggles to keep his head in the game as the monster swings her remaining arm. He instantly summons 50 clones to block the devastating blow. With a massive swing of his cursed blade, he shears the attacking limb clean off, before muttering about how much he hates using this sketchy weapon. The young woman who watched the whole thing asks if he really just soloed that monster. Sang confirms it, keeping his promise, and turns his attention back to his primary clone. Sang checks on clone number 1, who is severely injured and showing zero signs of healing. The woman explains that the monster's bone sword carries a heavy curse, meaning these wounds will never close on their own. She tells Sang they need a healer right away, then curiously asks if this clone is actually human. Sang confirms that he is. She admits she honestly thought the clone was just a weird troll wearing a hat. After hesitating for a second, she hands Sang a glowing potion, telling him it should help the clone. Sang looks closely at the vial and spots a tiny skull floating inside, making him question if this is safe. With no other options, he feeds it to the clone anyway. Immediately, black smoke and toxic fluid erupt from the clone's body. It actually looks like the cure worked, but the woman quickly warns him that this recovery is only temporary. She warns him that the clone's life force will slowly drain away from now on. It turns out her special ability is poison conjuration, allowing her to brew various potions and toxins. The draft she gave him was more of a potion than a straight-up poison, but it is still highly toxic, and she worries the clone's life force will drop drastically. Okay, I know what you were thinking. But instead of panicking, Sang just orders his dying clone to go hunt immediately since its time is running out. Talk about a cold leader. She demands to know what he is and how he can control monsters, admitting she's never seen a rank B hunter with this kind of insane power. Sang casually corrects her, stating he is only rank E. The woman is completely dumbfounded, wondering how on earth a rank E hunter is even alive in a zone like this. Sang tells her to shut up and relax, making it clear that he will be the one asking questions now. Meanwhile, over at the Yahello Guild's warehouse, members are loading boxes when they call over a blushing girl. Another member walks up and asks why she is hoarding so many items, commenting on her bizarre behavior. The girl blushes, explaining that a guy named One Tag asked her for a favor. The other girl wonders why Sang could possibly need such a massive pile of stones, asking if he plans to eat them all. Later on a train, the girl from the dungeon is thinking back to how coldly Sang shut down her questions. She wonders if he is actually a dangerous villain, but decides she is going to trust him anyway. Trying to act cool, she tells Sang he can talk to her if he wants. Sang just stares back at her, silently laughing at how ridiculous her suspicions were. Sang stands up and asks her about the Hyung Guild she brought up when they were running. Shocked, she asks how any active hunter could not know who they are. She explains that the Silver Moon Guild is just a puppet organization doing the Hyung Guild's dirty work. She adds that a shady man with a mustache runs the Hyung Guild. Remembering someone else who was hurt by them, Sang asks if they had captured her too. The woman tells him that is none of his business. Since he got the intel he wanted, Sang tells her he is heading back out to hunt. She asks why he is leaving so suddenly, and he coldly tells her that if she does not want to stay, she should just head to the gate. Then he walks away. Sang admits he thinks her poison skill is pretty impressive. She sighs and says she actually hates it because it is meant for killing and has nasty side effects. Sang then hands her Juno's card. He tells her to contact the agent if she is scared of the Hyung Guild and wants a safe job, mentioning that the agent absolutely detests the guild as well. With that, he heads back out to hunt. As he walks, Sang regrets not trying harder to recruit her, since her poison ability would be incredibly useful for upgrading his clones. And that's where we leave it, a brutal side effect of the poison that Sang definitely did not see coming. Talk about a massive drawback. Alright, you and I are diving back in. Once Sang's cooldown ends, he summons his clone stark naked, tells him to suit up, and gets back to hunting. But two massive guys are watching them from the shadows. Turns out, these guys are the same hunters, Sang kicked out of the gem mines. Looking to salvage whatever they can find, they stumble upon a glowing puddle of refined liquid crystal. They immediately realize a tiny drop of this stuff is worth 100 times more than standard gems, and it permanently boosts your stats by 0.5. The catch: drinking it turns you into a literal monster. The blonde hunter quickly decides that a minor stat upgrade is definitely not worth risking his humanity. But his buddy mentions a shady syndicate called DP that refines it for humans. Since DP buys up every gem they find, their suppliers are filthy rich. Smelling a massive payday, they plan to come back tomorrow and harvest all of the liquid crystal. They lock up and leave, but the moment the door shuts, it creaks open again. It is the woman who was traveling with Sang. She successfully slipped past the clone that was trailing her, and now she is frantically stuffing every single valuable item in the room into her clothes. Using a panicking mob nearby as the perfect cover, she blends right in and slips away. The clone guarding the area does not suspect a thing. Now pay attention, because things are about to get complicated. While Sang is busy farming tons of cash, a sudden alert cuts him off. The next day, those two greedy thieves return to the dungeon, only to find their precious crystal completely wiped clean. Furious, one of them grabs a guard by the throat, screaming about their pathetic security. He demands to know who else was let inside. The trembling guard stammers that only Sang's squad and the people they rescued had access before the lockdown. He drops the guard, remembering his brief run-in with Sang. The thief sweats, wondering how on earth a small-timer like him could ever compete with monsters of that level. Under the cover of night, the girl who escaped the chaos makes her move. She breathes a sigh of relief, knowing she would be dead if she had not crossed paths with Sang. Plus, she managed to swipe some decent gems. But as she stops to admire her loot, a business card slips from her pocket, reminding her of Sang's offer. He had praised her skills and handed her his number, inviting her to join his crew. Yet, instead of being grateful, she scoffed. Calling him an idiot, she vows never to call him just because he complimented her. Meanwhile, over at the guild meeting, Taowon kicks off the briefing. He explains that their target is Odin's Tower, where Team 1, including his own sister, is currently trapped. Junmo looks completely baffled by the news. Sang asks for some details about this mysterious place. Taowon explains that Odin's Tower is a unique type of dungeon with an entrance, but absolutely no known exit. The only connection to our world is through mana, meaning they can only communicate with the trapped team using high-level telepathy. He adds that the only way out is clearing the dungeon or using a rare teleportation skill. This gets Sang thinking about how this affects his cloning ability. He realizes he can just send his clones inside to scout ahead safely. He asks Tuan if that is the game plan and if he is up for it. But Sang asks why the elite team, one could not just escape themselves. Tuan admits they actually gave the team an emergency escape plan before they even set foot inside. W then steps forward to explain exactly how his sister's elite team got trapped. He recounts that 5 years ago, right before the final days of the 2005 disaster, she awakened a rare subspace storage skill. In those dark days for humanity, her power to pocket gear and even rescue people was their lifeline. Together, they survived countless life-or-death missions over the years. She grew into an absolute powerhouse, eventually taking charge of Team 1. W remembers warning her that entering Odin's Tower without a dedicated teleporter was pure suicide. But she argued they could not find any available teleporters and were fully loaded with escape scrolls. She insisted they had to run the mission immediately so their rivals wouldn't leave them in the dust. To prove they were ready, she showed him their massive hoard of supplies. Though he had a bad feeling, she convinced him, and they set off. A close friend later tried to calm W down, telling him to trust his elite squad and his own leadership. That was the exact day he made the public announcement. Sang saw as a kid, a complete coincidence. I know what you were thinking, did they even try contacting them? Junmo asks, and learns they brought 10 telepathy scrolls to send updates back. Everything went smoothly for the first few weeks, but after a month, things went south. In the base camp tent, an operator was setting up a scroll to receive their next report, but the message they got was terrifying. Talwon continues his story, remembering the fateful day they used a scroll to link up with the trapped team inside the tower. Suddenly, a glowing teleportation portal ripped open right next to them. When the first survivor stumbled out of the portal, he was horribly mutilated, clutching a severe stomach wound and coughing up blood. Seeing their strongest hunter in that state completely destroyed everyone's confidence. The dying man collapsed into a teammate's arms as they screamed for a medical crew. Meanwhile, the glowing portal began to flicker, showing signs of collapsing entirely. A woman frantically asks if the telepathic connection is still active, and the operator confirms it is. She immediately orders him to beam a message back, warning the team that a rescue squad is coming at 2 in the afternoon, and they must prepare to move. Even as medics rush over, the bleeding survivor gasps an apology, explaining that an undocumented, highly lethal monster has spawned inside. Even their top-tier healers could not patch up his wounds. Talon recounts that he just stood there, completely frozen and unable to say a word. Then, the telepath announces he is receiving the team's final transmission. He slowly repeats their heavy message, in which they admit they have ultimately failed the mission. Though they truly believe they could win, they beg the rescue team not to rush to their deaths because they can still hold out. Their last promise was that they would find a way back alive. Talon concludes that after that disaster, they tried hiring countless other high-level hunters, but absolutely nobody wanted to enter a death trap where only one person barely survived. Now back to today, Talon tells Sang he believes he is the only one who can reach the trapped squad. With that settled, Tawin is ready to launch the operation, promising a full guild escort right to the tower's entrance. But before they set out, they need to make a quick stop at a bar named Paradise. Elsewhere, the ruthless leader of the Silver Moon Guild, Yang, is brutally beating his own men. These were the goons supposed to be running the illegal underground slave mines. They try to explain that some unregistered freak ruined their operation, but Yang is furious. He screams about how they got thrashed by a measly rank E hunter, kicking them even harder, warning them that their corporate partners won't wait forever. He orders them to drag this mysterious hunter to him immediately. And just like that, the Silver Moon Guild is hunting Sang. And that is where we leave things today, with Yang secretly expecting his men to fail. Watching nearby is Kong Xinyan, the vice leader of the Silver Moon Guild. All right, let's jump right in. The next day, Sang tells Jetmo he suspects Taiwan is hiding something big, especially their real motives for wanting to clear Odin's tower. Sang admits his own tower knowledge is limited, but he knows from the famous jumper, George Lucas, that it was actually cleared back in 2012. He remembers the public frenzy back then, with everyone begging Lucas for details on the treasures. But Lucas claimed Odin's tower was completely empty, with just one lone monster left roaming around. Lucas insisted there were no items or treasures to find, warning other hunters not to waste their lives on a completely pointless run. Jetmo offers to dig deeper into the mystery, but Sang tells him not to bother. Just as they wrap up, the agency door swings open and a mysterious woman walks in. Turns out, she had been crashing right inside the building. When a confused Jetmo asks who she is, Sang explains he invited her. But as Jetmo steps closer, she instantly flinches away. Her very first demand is food. Once she finished eating, Sang hands over a contact card and asks if she is finally ready to work for the JM agency, which she confirms. Jetmo asks about her skills, and she casually lists item appraisal and potion making. But Sang quickly adds a terrifying detail: her potions are absolute poison to anyone who drinks them. Sporting a fresh new haircut, Sang explains that these lethal potions are actually perfect for his clones to use in battle. Catching on to the wild strategy, Jetmo officially welcomes her to the team and starts prepping the gear she needs to brew her deadly mixtures. With that business done, Sang stands up to leave, mentioning he has bigger fish to fry. The woman asks where he is off to, guessing he is headed straight to a dungeon raid. Sang tells her he has a very different mission today. Shrugging, she tosses him a couple of mana and strength potions. Curious, Jetmo asks about the side effects of these particular brews. She casually explains that the strength potion literally melts your muscles, while the mana one makes you explode. Talk about lethal. A bit later, Sang gathers his team outside. Now, watch closely here, this is where the real action kicks off. Sang rallies his squad, promising an epic feast once they return, which gets them hyped. Meanwhile, a guild member is wrapping up a massive delivery of rare jewels. But right as she is about to report, she finds the entire vault completely ransacked. Horrified, she wonders who could possibly be dumb enough to rob the legendary Yahello guild. Quickly activating her high-level detection skill, she locks onto the thieves. With their coordinates confirmed, she dives right into a portal to hunt them down. But before she can even strike, she is brutally ambushed and beaten down by a guy named Kanjine. He mockingly apologizes, claiming they desperately need the jewels, before checking if his crew grabbed every last piece. With the loot secured, Kanjine orders his crew to burn the building to the ground. Insanely enough, those stolen jewels are the exact ones Sang needs for his next massive mission. Meanwhile, in icy Iceland, Sang and his crew touch down in a massive spacecraft. They stand face to face with a portal to Valhalla, which links directly to Odin's tower. At the entrance, the guards let Sang know that someone was waiting for him. Stepping through the portal, he emerges onto a stone path, floating in what looks like outer space. The environment leaves him totally disoriented, since it looks nothing like a normal tower. Shivering from the extreme cold, he finally tracks down the guild supply depot. Inside, he finds all their jewels stolen, with the crew frantically discussing the heist. When Sang steps in, the crowd immediately greets him with absolute excitement. They hand his clones heavy jackets to shield them from the freezing cold before gearing up. Their target lies 40 kilometers away, right at the spot where the previous team completely vanished. Sang notes that 40 kilometers is not that far, especially since it took the first team a whole month to get there. Wanda explains that non-stop monster battles caused the delay, not a lack of gear. He then hands Sang 3 protective scrolls for his summons. Sang passes them to clones 4, 5, and 6, making it clear they are absolutely crucial for his upcoming strategy. Asking how to trigger them, Sang is told to simply rip them apart, since each scroll is linked directly to his set location. A woman in the depot adds that Team 1 was supposed to scout a specific area at 2 p.m., advising Sang to look for signs of a clash there. After she asks if he has any more questions, Sang playfully asks what they would like for dinner once he returns with his sister. Wanta replies that he wants a warm, homemade meal. With that, the clones grab their swords and potions, and the five-man team sets off into the frozen wild. Sang stays behind, sitting down to activate his familiar summoning skill. Back at the base, a nervous Wanta admits that the success of this entire rescue now rests solely on Sang's shoulders. Sang's summon skill works perfectly, letting his warriors advance straight through the raging blizzard. The weather is a massive headache, making progress slow despite his natural resistance to the extreme cold. He finally reaches Odin's tower, which stands right next to a massive, frozen city. But the moment he arrives, Sang is hit with a bizarre, overwhelming sensation. He realizes he now has direct, full control over his main summon's physical body. Thanks to his familiar skill hitting level 17, the ability has evolved from sharing basic senses to giving him complete physical command. This upgrade is on a whole different level. Before, he just issued mental orders that his summons would carry out. Now, he literally feels like he is living inside the monster's body. Let's see how he uses this crazy link to push his squad forward. As the hunt begins, Sang realizes the frozen path behind him has completely vanished, cutting off any chance of escape. Suddenly, a massive ice bat swoops down, but his familiars instantly shred it to pieces with ease. Instead of jumping into the fight, Sang hangs back to study their movement. He quickly notices that these ice bats always attack in swarms, led by a much larger, high-level boss variant. When the giant boss bat finally appears, Sang reaches for his sword, but his summons obliterate the beast before he can even draw. Laughing off the easy win, they keep moving, tearing through waves of bats. In no time, they clear 13 kilometers, a quarter of the entire run, much faster than he ever expected. Suddenly, a group of massive, club-wielding Yetis emerge from the snow. Always prepared, Sang immediately fires a magic projectile, blasting one right in the skull. He quickly splits his summons into a tight formation, 2 holding the front line while 3 provide support from the back. The strategy works perfectly, and the Yetis are easily crushed. This total lack of danger makes Sang a bit uneasy, though he has to admit his progress is going incredibly well. But just as he is celebrating his smooth run, the ground beneath his summon completely caves in. Meanwhile, back inside a base tent, a worried woman asks Wante if he is absolutely sure Sang will be safe out there. Wante just smiles and tells her not to sweat it. He explains that his original plan was a tiny rescue mission to save a few survivors, with backup coming much later. But Sang's mind-blowing growth rate completely broke all their expectations. In just 6 months, his core stats shot up by nearly 20 points each, putting his raw power on par with a rank B hunter. Wante also mentions Sang's elite standing in the US Air Force. The woman realizes this means Sang's solo power is equal to an entire rank B raid team, and Wante fully agrees. He adds that Sang would be even more broken if that warehouse heist had succeeded. She nods, noting that besides the legendary ice golem, nothing on the first floor can touch him. And as we wrap up, Wante is confident Sang can handle it. Trust me, we're in for a wild ride. Alright, you and I are dropping right into a massive danger zone with Sang. He cuts his own finger, coating his blade in blood to prep for one hell of a fight. With a massive swing, he strikes a giant ice golem, but it does absolutely 0 damage. Not even a scratch. The beast retaliates with a brutal headbutt, but Sang barely leaps aside in time. It is a brutal wake-up call. His ultimate weapon cannot even dent this monster. To make things worse, the whole place is pure chaos, crawling with other hostile creatures. Suddenly, the massive golem eats one of those beasts and reaches out its giant hand. Sang quickly grabs hold of it. Dodging a barrage of projectiles, he notices the golem is wiping out these monsters way faster than his own clones. Something is definitely off here. Then he remembers the warning. He has to smash the bright yellow core right in its chest. He is running out of options since his magic bullets cannot even scratch that core. The beast raises its massive arm for a crushing overhead strike, and Sang shouts for his clones to run. He avoids the falling debris but cannot dodge the massive fist coming his way. Luckily, the punch misses him, smashing clone number 5 into absolute dust instead. Knowing he needs to act fast, Sang thinks about using a teleport scroll. Cooking up a wild plan, he charges straight at the golem as it drags the crushed remains of his clone. Triggering a skill in his legs, he narrowly escapes being eaten alive. Just as those giant jaws snap shut with a loud crash, Sang lunges straight forward. The surviving clones watch in pure panic, but Sang turns out to be completely safe outside. Sprawled on the ground, he looks up at the raging beast and asks if it liked the taste of its meal. Now pay attention here, because this plan is absolute genius. He actually got the monster to swallow that teleport scroll. Back when clone number 5 got smashed, Sang realized that if he could not break that core, he would just teleport it away. The magic scroll triggered right inside the beast, opening a portal that targeted its life force. The core instantly vanished, shutting the golem down for good. With the beast dead, Sang gets a massive boost to his strength, vitality, dexterity, and mana. Even his clone's skill levels up a power he realizes had been lagging behind all his other abilities for way too long. He decides not to summon a new clone just yet. Meanwhile, the scene cuts over to a guy named George Lucas, who is chilling in a bath. His virtual assistant shows him a list of people wanting an audience this month, and looking at those names completely stresses him out. He anxiously asks if any requests came from South Korean guilds, but the assistant tells him there are absolutely none. George snaps, calling it totally ridiculous how times have changed. He orders his assistant to deny every single meeting and to go ahead with the grand opening ceremony for his brand new academy. We shift focus again over to a guy named Baldy, who gets cornered by the very same thug Sang beat up earlier. The thug says he has been hunting for Baldy since their last run-in. He demands to know how he escaped from those Silver Moon bastards, but Baldy just says he had help, keeping his savior a complete secret. He adds that their buddy, Chang Wan, is totally exhausted. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattles the door, and it swings wide open. A massive thug named Kenjin storms in and immediately clocks a chubby guy, sending him flying across the room. Stepping inside, he demands to know who dared to attack the Silver Moon members in the hunting grounds. He warns everyone that this is his third stop, and the last two groups claim they knew nothing. He sneers, wondering out loud if these guys are going to try and play dumb too. The chubby guy fires up a skill and tries to punch him, but Kanjin blocks it effortlessly. Staring him down, Kanjin grabs his wrist and violently slams him to the floor. Dragging the poor guy back up, Kanjin unloads a brutal punch straight to his head, leaving him bloody and battered. Terrified by the sight, a bald man begs him to stop, promising to spill everything. Kanjin acts all confused before smacking the bald guy right in the mouth. He growls that they will talk either way, asking why they are acting like talking now is some kind of favor. He asks why he is even protecting that chubby guy, cold-bloodedly adding that the man is going to die anyway. He punches the bald guy again, flooring him, and goes to stomp him out. You can feel the sheer terror as he screams to stop, begging to reveal who attacked Silver Moon. While the guy begs for mercy, Kanjin laughs, claiming every single problem is solved with fists. Just as Sang's name is about to slip, we cut back to the icy region where Sang and his clones travel. Sang warns everyone to slow down and stay on high alert. They haven't run into any monsters lately, but they keep finding tons of dead bodies frozen in the snow. He thinks about how tough it must be to retrieve bodies out here, wondering what on earth could massacre so many people. He asks a clone for their coordinates, and it confirms they are almost there. He orders them to search for any battle scars left by someone named Team 1, telling them they need to clear the whole area by 2 o'clock. Out of nowhere, a clone leaps in front of Sang, blocking a sudden stab from an invisible attacker. Then, a massive beast materializes right before his eyes. Completely baffled by the sudden ambush, Sang realizes these monsters must have an active camouflage skill since the only clues were footprints. Within seconds, a whole pack of them surrounds the group. Sang realizes these invisible killers are the ones who slaughtered all those people. He tries to draw his dagger, but one of the beasts slams him backward. A clone behind him immediately reacts, slashing the beast. As the fight heats up, more invisible monsters pop up, showing themselves only when they strike. It is super weird how his clones can block these surprise attacks so easily. Sang decides to hand over control of his body to clone number 1 so he can analyze the battle. Clone number 1 draws a cursed sword, and even though the dark blade drains him, he does not care. Sang parries an unseen strike, senses another coming from behind, and cuts it down. He figures out that he can react to these cloaked beasts just by listening closely to the whistle of the wind whenever they swing. Sang admits to himself that copying his clone's combat instincts is not going to be easy. Meanwhile, inside a subdimension dungeon, a trapped team member talks to their captain. He points out that it is almost 2 o'clock and they must evaluate their options. Standing up, the female captain tells them she can no longer offer any empty hope. She is sure today will be just like the rest, with the cracking of ice as their only welcome. But suddenly, she catches a different noise. Outside, Sang is still trying to figure out how his clones easily detect these cloaked killers. The monsters do not have crazy stats, but their total invisibility makes them a massive threat. His clones are getting heavily battered and slashed, yet the enemy horde shows no signs of slowing down. There is no telling how many are left. Suddenly, a subdimension gate opens up. Recognizing it as the raid team's location, Sang immediately sends all his clones sprinting that way. Peering out from inside the portal, the captain spots someone running toward them. The team is quiet at first, but some look impressed as the runner gets closer. The captain triggers her scanning skill and is shocked to see Sang leading a giant horde of monsters straight to them. Shielding his eyes, Sang shouts that he is here to rescue them but begs them to save him back. The captain orders her squad into action, and trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. All right, you and I are jumping right into a high-stakes rescue as she orders her team to shield the kid. A magic dome erupts, and a mage starts casting a lethal mana arrow. Spells slam into the chasing beasts while Sang sprints for safety. His first clone slips inside the protective barrier just in time, leaving the exhausted squad to collapse as their captain slams her heavy shield shut. The captain offers her thanks, and Sang introduces himself as a member of Rescue Team 1. Still, the squad looks completely unimpressed with him. A woman asks if he is with the Cain's Guild. Sang nods, explaining that their leader Ilta personally sent him on this mission. Hearing this, a squad member sighs in relief, glad they were not left to die. The captain quickly asks about Shang Ta, their teammate who managed to escape. Sang reassures her that the man is still alive, though he's currently unconscious. Sang respects her worry but tells them they have to move right now since Ilta is waiting. However, she reveals a shortcut, showing him that she actually brought teleportation scrolls along. Sang immediately spots that one of the 10 scrolls is missing and asks where it went. The woman hesitates, clearly setting up to ask him for another massive favor. When Sang asks what she needs, she tearfully explains they lost a comrade during a brutal ambush. Their healer was targeted first, and then an older warrior went down right after. She desperately wants to recover the fallen ally's body instead of leaving it behind. She explains that during the chaotic fight, they opened up a portal to escape the onslaught, but an invisible monster snuck through, slaughtering the mage, holding the gate open and forcing them to run. Sang gets the situation and asks where the body is located. She opens up a spatial pocket to show him the zone. Sang notes it is not too far away, but getting it means fighting through hordes of deadly beasts. Knowing his clones can handle this risk, he agrees, but sets 2 strict rules. First, if things go sideways or look too dangerous, he is pulling everyone out. The team quickly agrees. Second, he is going in completely alone. When they start protesting this suicidal plan, Sang clarifies he is sending his clones, not his real self, leaving the captain totally shocked. Meanwhile, a brutal hunter named Kenjin Ho is beating up Jun Mo. Knowing Jun Mo's agency is tied to Sang, Kenjin Ho savagely snaps his arm during the interrogation. Jun Mo stays silent despite the torture, but Kenjin Ho spots a file on the table anyway. It reveals Sang's true identity as Jiang Sang-woo, a hunter from GM agency. With Sang's name and address exposed, his family is in extreme danger. The villains also know about his cloning skill, realizing they must hunt down his real body to kill him. Kenjin Ho immediately dispatches his killers to that address. But pay attention here, a mysterious woman is watching from the shadows, recognizing them as members of the feared Silver Moon sect. The bleeding Jun Mo asks why they are hunting Sang down. Kenjin Ho sneers, saying Sang wiped out their crystal-gathering crew. When Jun Mo plays dumb, Kenjin Ho calls him a stubborn fool. He paints Sang as a thief who stole their crystals and ran, acting like they are the victims. Things are getting incredibly messy right now. The girl with Sang actually stole an incredibly valuable artifact, while Sang only took a small bag of crystals. Yet, they are both caught in the crosshairs. Back in the dimension, the woman admits Sang's cloning magic is like nothing she has ever witnessed. Sang smiles, telling her they are physical copies, not illusions. Even if they get destroyed, he can just summon them back with 0 real consequences. He lays out the strategy. Clones 4 and 6 will guard the entrance with a backup teleport scroll just in case things go wrong. Meanwhile, Sang and clones 2 and 3 will head in to grab the corpse. The captain is doubtful, and though the old warrior offers to join, Sang declines, insisting their survival is his duty. The woman doubts his logic, questioning how he can guarantee safety while surrounded by lethal beasts. Sang stands firm, telling her that the plan only works if she trusts him. After a tense pause, she reluctantly nods. Now, I know what you were thinking, how strong is Sang anyway? Well, 6 months of eating crystals boosted his stats and unlocked a broken skill. This passive ability, called Monster Devour, gives him a 12% chance to steal a portion of a monster's permanent stats with every kill. This is his main way to power up, though he is still hungry for more. Standing before the gate, Sang orders it open, noting that this portal is strong enough to swallow full mana explosions. He tells clone number 4 to hand him a knife, then hurls his cursed sword, along with a vial of deadly demon poison, straight into the portal. He gives one last command. The second they get the body, everyone must run instantly. She warns him that the dimension's monsters stay frozen until they spot a target, meaning his lures will hold their ground. Plan locked in, Sang cracks his knuckles, signals his squad, and plunges right into the danger zone. He spots the fallen comrade's body and moves in. Suddenly, a fresh footprint caught in the dirt alerts him that an enemy is lurking nearby. Outside, the guard clones hold the perimeter, telling the rescue team to stay back. Some offer to help, but the captain's sister tells them to wait. She points out they are 40 kilometers deep, meaning Sang must have a secret trick to cross that distance so fast. They just need to believe in him. Inside, as Sang advances, a beast lunges from his right side. He blocks the surprise attack instantly, catching the beast off guard. This perfect parry shows just how incredibly sharp his combat senses have become. But a massive horde of monsters is guarding the woman's body. As Sang pushes forward to reach it, a sudden slash strikes one of his clones from behind. With monsters closing in from every direction, Sang triggers his plan. Chugging a heavy mana potion, he fires a massive, high-energy blast directly at a giant corpse nearby. Back in the safe zone, the observers are completely speechless. Clones, multiple weapons, destructive magic, the kid's entire toolkit is just completely broken. Sang checks on an injured hunter, asking if he can still move. Gritting his teeth, the guy confirms he can still stand. Sang orders him to grab the fallen comrade's body, but suddenly feels a terrifying surge. The corpse's mana is highly unstable and about to detonate, turning into a wicked dark magic curse. Acting as a decoy, Sang flares his aura to draw the enemies away. Monsters surround him instantly, giving two of his clones the opening they need to grab the corpse. Sang screams for them to run, then slams his foot down, launching everyone high into the air. The clones use that momentum to leap ahead, sprinting wildly toward the escape portal. The squad safely makes it out, and the female hunter gasps out her thanks. Quickly crossing over, they immediately start shredding a scroll to seal the portal shut. The old warrior yells at them to wait, shouting that someone is still trapped over there. But Sang calmly explains that it is just a clone, whose survival is already forfeit. The clone looks back at the team with full awareness before the seal locks. Thanks to this crazy fight, Sang's Monster Devourer skill kept triggering over and over. Sucking up their ice essence, he boosts his strength, reflexes, and cold resistance. And trust me, you and I are ready for his next evolution. Alright, you and I are diving into a world of high-stakes hunters. It starts quiet, with someone slicing an apple, telling a comatose man named Mr. Xiang Te that today's rescue mission might already be over. They tell him to open his eyes, and suddenly, Mr. Shan Tai's finger twitches. Meanwhile, back at the guild base inside the giant tower, a portal finally cracks open, sending worried members rushing over. A bloody hand reaches out first, terrifying the crowd. But a young woman instantly recognizes the hunter as her own brother, bursting into tears of pure relief as he steps through. Elsewhere, Sang wakes up in a chair, completely exhausted. It was his first time pulling off such a crazy, self-destructive move. His sister sits by his side, trying hard to stay calm, while hugs a weeping woman tightly, calling her a dummy while gently whispering that the danger is finally over. Hearing this, she cries even harder. She sobs, admitting she was absolutely terrified and thought they were completely doomed, blaming herself for another girl's tragic fate. While they share this emotional reunion, the rest of the guild silently watches them. Meanwhile, the hospitalized hunter finally opens his eyes. Later on, Sang is checking his stats when his shadow clone appears and hands back his sword. Sang smiles, seeing his stats have shot way up. Just then, one Taz approaches, formally thanking the hunter in Japanese. Sang casually brushes it off, saying he only did it for the fat paycheck. One Taz chuckles, promising that from now on, he has got Sang's back. He tells the young hunter to just say the word if he ever runs into any trouble. Sometime later, Sang meets up with W to return an unused scroll from the dungeon. W tells him he should just keep any leftovers from the raid for himself. Sang shakes his head, saying it belongs to the guild, and he cannot take it. Jumo takes the item back, while the sister expresses shock, realizing Sang was actually there the whole time. One Taz explains that Sang actually stayed back, using his signature skill to control those powerful creatures from afar. Now, here is where you and I need to pay close attention. The Sun's sister finally believes it, while One Taz watches Sang, wondering how absurdly strong this kid is going to get. One Taz nods, saying he has to check on the survivors and arrange funerals. Suddenly, Sang's phone, finally back in service, starts blowing up with a flood of urgent notifications. Sang opens the texts and freezes in shock. Junmo has been kidnapped by the notorious Silver Moon Guild. Worst of all, the text contains a tracker showing his exact location. Pure rage washes over Sang's face as he tells One Taz he has to leave right now. When asked why, Sang reveals the truth. Silver Moon took Junmo. One Taz is baffled by their motive, but Sang figures it is payback for the brutal beatdown he gave one of their guys at the hunting grounds. Hearing that, One Taz pulls a high-grade scroll from his jacket, forcing Sang to take it. He insists on keeping his promise of absolute support. Meanwhile, a tense crowd of thugs gathers right outside the entrance of the Silver Moon Guild. Nearby, a young woman is keeping watch when someone suddenly barks out her name. Before she can react, a shady thug grabs her, demanding to know what she is doing. But before they can touch her, a portal tears open and Sang steps through. In a flash, he chokes one attacker while his shadow clones corner the other with sharp daggers. She is absolutely stunned by his terrifying speed, watching the trapped henchmen struggle desperately for breath. She quickly begs Sang to stop, explaining they need to squeeze this guy for crucial information first. Nodding, Sang ties the thugs up and demands to know where the hostage is. The girl explains that Junmo is trapped inside Silver Moon's heavy storage warehouse, and Sang orders her to stay put. While Sang gets ready to summon his shadow army, inside the dark warehouse, a bloody and heavily beaten Junmo is being held hostage by a ruthless boss named Kangwon. Kangwon demands to know why their small-time agency dared to mess with a major guild. While Junmo desperately hopes Sang Woo will save him, a thug sneers, reporting that Sang Woo is out of the country for hours. But just as the captors casually talk about ordering dinner, bam! A massive strike slices the heavy metal door, sending it flying inward. Sang calmly steps through the dust, asking if they belong to Silver Moon. Kangwon is shocked, having expected him to arrive hours later. Some thugs recognize Sang's abilities, pointing out his masked summons, so Kangwon commands them to destroy the clones. As a battered Junmo weakly cries out, Sang steps forward with pure fury burning in his eyes. The first thug rushes in, only to eat a jaw-shattering elbow to the face, followed by Sang grabbing his arm and snapping it like a dry twig. Another suit tries his luck, but Sang instantly breaks his arm too. Seeing his entire squad groaning on the floor, Kangwon calls them trash, realizing Sang dismantled them without even moving an inch. You and I both know this guy is doomed, but Kangwon actually calls for a timeout, casually asking where Sang hid the precious crystals. Sang is genuinely confused, remembering only some worthless rocks he looted. He cold stares Kangwon, warning him that he crossed a line and there is no walking away from this. Kangwon laughs, calling Sang arrogant. He admits he dug into Sang's background and acknowledges that the kid possesses some serious, monstrous physical power. He places Sang at high B class, but sneers that despite those stats, his cloning skill is utterly useless. He claims it is just a garbage trick. He figures Sang only has one big attack up his sleeve, mocking him for hanging around a low-tier agency because weaklings always stick together. Sang just shrugs it off with a cold smirk. Suddenly, an army of clones surrounds the room, completely flipping the tables in an instant. The thugs instantly freeze in sheer terror, with one of them stuttering that their entire backyard guard has already been wiped out. Kangwon snaps at his men, calling them brainless idiots. Now heavily outnumbering his enemies, Sang draws a lethal dagger, prompting Kangwon to activate his premium invisibility skill. A cocky lackey smirks, confident their boss has got this, since only a high-level detection class hunter could ever hope to spot his stealth. Cloaked in shadows, Kangwon gloats, believing his stealth completely erases his presence and aura, making him totally undetectable to normal senses. Slipping behind Sang for the kill, he notices the clones are staring right at him. Brushing it off as a fluke, he strikes, but Sang calmly orders his shadows to grab him. The clones instantly tackle the shocked boss, pinning him flat. Sang then tells his shadows to carry a bloody Junmo straight to the nearest hospital. Next, we cut to a lively bar where Sang's college buddies are chugging beers, celebrating the start of their junior year. One complains that it is still just the three of them, asking when they will get girlfriends. The glasses-wearing friend then asks if anyone has heard from Sang Woo lately. They realize he changed his phone number and went completely silent, but another buddy reveals a wild rumor. Sang Woo is working as a hunter. They are shocked, unable to picture the nice guy they knew slaying monsters. But as we wrap up, remember they have simply never seen him truly angry. Alright, you and I are about to dive into the backstory of a total badass. Sang Woo's neighbor remembers the exact day the quiet kid finally snapped on their way home from school. He describes being cornered by a ruthless gang of thugs. When Sang Woo showed up, his friend begged him to run, but instead, Sang Woo rushed back and headbutted one of the punks. Turns out, Sang Woo did not actually save him, and both of them got completely wrecked. He only found out later that Sang Woo had already been targeted by that very same gang. His friends laugh about how Sang Woo might seem incredibly chill, but he completely loses it when provoked. He would swallow his own pride under fire, but if you dared touch his buddies, total game over. Back in the present, a terrified Kangen stammers, demanding to know how he got spotted. Sang just smirks at his overconfidence, revealing he just wiped out a pack of beasts using that exact stealth skill. Sang brings up the trash talk, reminding Kangen how he called his abilities garbage and warned him never to set foot in this place. Ever since that insane clash at Odin's Tower, Sang's stats had skyrocketed, gaining nearly 10 points across the board, with his cold resistance jumping straight to 19. Making a move, he hurls one foe clean across the room. His clones report that while one managed to escape, the rest are down. Sang tells them to get Junmu to the hospital immediately. Groaning on the floor, a beaten Kanjine struggles to stand. He realizes the official files listing Sang's strength at a measly 19 were a massive lie, because this power is completely off the charts. Even worse, those clones are absolute monsters. Getting trapped by just 2 of them would mean instant defeat. Figuring this crazy stat boost has to be from some cheat item, Kanjin spots a strange potion in Sang's pocket. Getting to his feet, he admits he severely underestimated the kid and never expected this fight. Now, pay attention here, because he is about to unleash the true, devastating power of a certified Class B hunter. Flashing a strength of 25 and reflex of 35, he charges in, yelling that Sang has not seen his true potential. Sang calmly replies that he has zero interest in looking at another man's stuff. Mid-dash, Kanjin realizes his stealth is completely useless. He deduces that Sang's clones must be tracking the subtle air currents shifting around his body. To mess up their tracking, Kanjin starts moving in wild patterns, whipping up chaotic wind to mask his approach. Sang notes that with this extreme speed, dodging is going to get tricky. But Sang just pivots and blocks the strike perfectly. He cracks Kanjine right over the skull, calling him a brainless fool, since kicking up all that dust and smoke actually made him a massive target. Face planting into the dirt, Kanjin suddenly starts laughing like a total psychopath. Sang just stares down, asking what is so funny. That's when Sang notices his pocket is empty. Kanjin proudly holds up the stolen potion, sneering that he knew those freaky stats were fake, demanding to know if this vial is his little secret. Sang warns him that chugging that thing is a terrible idea, but Kanjin downs the entire bottle anyway. Instantly, his strength stat explodes from 29 to 37, then leaps to 51, cracking the earth. Drunk on raw power, Kanjin boasts that Sang's voice can't even reach him anymore. Sang just sighs, telling him not to come crying to him when the side effects kick in. Internally, Sang is amazed. Doubling a Class B hunter's raw power is a feat that even the most expensive high-grade potions could never pull off. Kanjin demands the name of the alchemist who brewed it, promising to let Sang leave with both arms if he talks. Sang remains completely unfazed, having already sent clones 4 and 6 away. That leaves only Sang and clones 2 and 3 to face this steroid-boosted madman. They lock eyes, and Kanjin blitzes forward, easily blowing right past the defensive clones with brute force. Sang swings his blade, but Kanjin strikes first, knocking him completely off balance. Smirking, the villain asks Sang if he finally realizes his mistake, bragging that he did not just look up his stats. And yeah, I know what you are thinking. His family? Oh, they are in serious danger now as some creepy stranger knocks on their front door. Back at the battlefield, Kanjin viciously slashes Sang over and over, his brutal blows generating enough force to drag our hero backward across the stone floor. With 2 more thugs flanking them, the clones leap into action. Bleeding onto his sword, Sang retaliates with an epic swing, slicing Kanjin's weapon right in half. Enraged, Kanjin charges up and punches him. The heavy fist sends Sang flying across the room, smashing him hard into the wall, while another clone takes a brutal strike straight to the gut. Kanjin slips a back attack and counters with a nasty uppercut to the jaw. Meanwhile, Sang starts feeling the side effects of his own potion, as his watching friends complain about his reckless arrogance. Sang tells them to shut it, promising he's going to win this. His friend asks if there is a backup plan, but Sang just tells everyone to take cover. Frustrated by Sang's absolute refusal to give up, Kanjin asks why he keeps struggling. But Sang is just playing dumb, waiting for the ticking time bomb potion to kick in. Kanjin pulls out his phone, sneering that he is going to order some proof to make things clear. He orders his men at the house to chop off his parents' fingers and send over the photos. Suddenly, Kanjin's arm goes completely limp, sending his phone clattering to the floor. He collapses, screaming as his body begins to melt like a puddle of toxic slime. Sang notes that the potion is finally doing its job. The dark magic is literally liquefying Kanjin's muscles, leaving him weak and terrified. Sang reminds him that he did warn him not to drink. Desperate, Kanjin crawls for his phone, trying to order his goons to drag Sang's parents over as human shields. With his arm melting down to literal skin and bones, Kanjin screams for an antidote, threatening Sang's parents. But a terrified voice on the phone suddenly cuts him off. The lackey reports that they went to the wrong house and ran straight into the powerful Canis Guild. Turns out, a massive, bearded hunter had single-handedly wiped out the entire squad. That very giant was the one knocking on the door. While casually holding a defeated thug, Sang's dad picks up and asks how his son is doing. Sang tells him he is totally fine. Meanwhile, a trembling Kanjin looks down at his screen. He lets out a blood-curdling shriek as his body begins rotting into a hideous, zombie-like creature, without Sang even lifting a single finger. Sang grabs the decaying beast, telling him to save his energy just to keep breathing. Gripping his arm hard, Sang warns him never to touch his family again, ending the fight right there. A nearby witness watches the horrific aftermath in pure shock. Later on, Sang slips into the hospital to check on Junmo, sneakily climbing through the window since visiting hours are closed. Spotting dried blood on Sang's face, Junmo asks what went down. Sang brushes it off, credited to his fast healing, but warns him that the Silver Moon Guild is still gunning for them. He then asks Junmo if it is finally time to go get his official hunter rank reevaluated. Junmo agrees, pointing out that while Sang's rank technically went up after the portal incident, he has not actually taken any official tests to prove his real tier. Protecting his sister and paying her bills was his only goal. But trust me, you and I both know his journey is only just beginning. What changed his mind? Alright, let's look at why Sang wanted a higher rank. If he was high tier, Silver Moon would never have dared to attack the JM agency. This is where his climb to the top begins. Junmo agreed this would be great publicity for the AY agency, but warned it would draw dangerous attention and lead to constant fights. Still, Sang's mind was completely made up. Next, we find Sang at the evaluation center. A cloning-type evaluator named Sang Woo asks if he is seriously taking this alone, since most hunters usually tackle this test in groups. C. Lower-tier hunters usually team up because these monsters are insanely strong. But Sang? He is a total cheat code who does not need any backup. Sang just calmly says he has always worked alone. Sang Woo explains the rules to rank up. Sang has to hunt a beast one tier higher and turn in the proof. Sang immediately asks if he can just skip straight past D and C to B rank. But the examiner shuts him down, saying he can only go one step at a time. Fine. Sang asks for his target. The examiner tells him to hunt a fisherman monster, warning him its iron hide is totally bulletproof. After getting his target, Sang just sits down and starts scrolling through his phone. 2 hours pass, and the examiner wonders if this kid has completely given up on the exam. Suddenly, Sang walks back to the desk. The examiner asks if he wants to quit, but Sang drops a bomb he has already done with the hunt. As the examiner stares in disbelief, Sang confirms the beast is dead and the proof is uploaded. He calmly asks to be registered as a D-class hunter. Now, check this out because the employee is completely losing his mind. The kid was literally sitting right there drinking coffee the entire time. How is this even possible? The clerk has no clue. Sang sent a clone to do the dirty work. He scoffs and tells Sang to check the database himself, confident the system will show absolutely nothing. But when he finally checks the system, boom. There is official proof that Sang Woo cleared the hunt. Utterly baffled, he calls the dungeon staff to verify the kill. They confirm it is real, the target is dead. The clerk is left scratching his head, wondering if the whole system is broken. Sang casually asks if they can wrap this up. Suspecting some kind of crazy trick, the clerk reluctantly starts processing the upgrade. He hands over the D-class rank but warns Sang he is writing a report about this. Sang's response? He immediately demands to sign up for the class exam. Later that night, a girl carrying a bag of glowing crystals walks with Sang. She tearfully apologizes, admitting the attack on Jam was completely her fault. She confesses to stealing those precious crystal jewels. Sang's face turns dead serious, sending cold shivers down her spine. Now she is totally terrified, wondering why she just spilled her guts to someone so incredibly ruthless. But Sang just smiles and reassures her. He says she is not to blame, the real monsters are the ones who threatened his family. He tells her to relax. The stolen crystals are strictly between her and Silver Moon, and he is staying out of it. Plus, the poor girl has no idea what shady experiments Silver Moon and High Scion did to her. Trembling, she pulls down her hat, mutters a thank you, and bolts. Back at the office, the stunned employee tells Sang he just passed both the C and B class exams. Sang stands up, announcing he is done for the day. The completely flabbergasted clerk can only repeat his words in disbelief. Just then, another official walks in and says Sang finally pulled it off. The first clerk asks if he knows this guy. The newcomer nods, revealing Sang is the legendary hunter with special clearance to enter multiple dungeons simultaneously. The officer continues, mentioning the doctor who originally evaluated Sang's insane skills. Apparently, that doctor was so completely mind-blown by Sang's power that he spread the word to everyone. The official comments that it is actually crazy Sang did not rank up way sooner. And yeah, you and I both know going from E rank to B rank in a single day is completely unheard of. A week later, the media totally explodes with stories about this crazy new clone user. Articles hype up his legendary speedrun as the fastest rank up in history. Plus, the public finally realizes his clones are not illusions, they are fully real physical entities. Around this time, Sang gets a direct deposit of 5 billion won. He is absolutely frozen in shock, but Taewon explains this is just his standard payment for the job. Sang argues that the payout is way too high, but Taewon sets him straight. Even if he called it a favor earlier, it was always the official contract. He forces Sang to take the cash, pointing out nobody else could have cleared that impossible mission. Before leaving, Taewon invites him to stop by the guild anytime. Sang literally collapses to the floor, drowning in sheer relief. All his money struggles, gone. He finally has enough cash to protect and heal his sister. His next move? Hire the legendary S-rank healer known as Bless. In his head, Sang imagines tracking down the healer, dropping to his knees, grabbing his legs, and begging so aggressively that the guy will have to say yes. Meanwhile, the Master of Silver Moon is furious over the defeat of his top guys. He rants about their stupid strategy, since wiping out the Yahello guild leaves them with no one to refine their crystals. The guild master decides to burn all the evidence to hide their tracks. But right then, a mysterious woman named Yang Ju-chul shows up. She mocks his strength and accuses someone named Shikari of looting their stash. The Silver Moon boss tries to play it cool, suggesting they talk it out, while secretly launching a deadly, surprise punch. She effortlessly blocks the fist with her sharp claws. Cut to the Canis Guild, where Junmo thanks Taewon for sending elite guards to protect Sang's family. Taewon instantly guesses that Silver Moon is behind the raids. Junmo nods, admitting this war is far from over, especially with the powerhouse Kang In-ho involved. Taewon points out that Kang In-ho is the vice leader, but Sang already beat him into a permanent vegetative state. Turns out Junmo used to manage that guy back at the Hong Guild. Everyone knows the shady link between Hong and Silver Moon. Suddenly, Yang Ju-chul bursts into the Canis office. She reports that those Silver Moon bastards are mass-producing synthetic crystals to feed the Hong Guild. She tosses a massive stack of files over to Junmo as proof. She greets Junmo, calling him a total psycho based on the rumors. Junmo fires back, noting she just paid a visit to Silver Moon. She shrugs, admitting she went there to reclaim her stolen loot. Taewon asks about a strange term he heard, DRP. Yang Ju-chul explains it is a lethal steroid synthesized from those jewels, and the Hong Guild is brewing it in massive quantities. Now, let us take a quick step back into Hunter history. The job was only legalized after the world-ending catastrophe. The government stepped in to guard dungeons with troops, tax the profits, and buy up all the raw monster drops. But as you and I can guess, some rogue hunters absolutely hated these rules. They outright refused to register their names or follow any of the laws. Alright, you and I are about to expose a secret society using illegal weapons to guard their dirty money, and guess who is in on it? None other than Yang Ju-chul. Next, she walks into a bar hauling a massive pile of crystals, leaving the bartenders completely speechless by the sheer volume. Sang actually warned her not to bring this stuff here. She just smiles, claiming she found them abandoned at the station, which only makes Sang frown. Suddenly, some thugs corner a girl named Wu Haiyan and demand she come with them. These guys clearly belong to a guild. Wu Haiyan begs the bartender for help, but he backs off because they are threatening his family. Right then, a new guy steps up to intervene. The thug mocks his fancy suit and asks who he is, but the newcomer just stares him down and tells him to back off. The thug tries to mouth off, but gets punched straight in the jaw. As he backs away bleeding, he notices Sang standing there. And now time for a quick flashback. Earlier, Sang told Wu Haiyan he would protect her now that she joined the GM agency. He ordered her to try selling those crystals, knowing their enemies would swallow the bait. Cut to his secret facility where the Haiyang Guild Master, Shin, is getting patted down by guards. They coldly inform him he only has 10 minutes inside. He just laughs as the heavy doors swing open. Inside, he meets a mysterious woman called the Oracle. Shin asks if she foresaw his arrival or is just playing games. She calmly tells him she already knows what he wants, and her answer is still no. She tells him to give up and be happy with what he has. Shin snaps, reminding her of her prophecy that every powerful hunter would bow to him. But she explains his fate has completely shifted due to a single, chaotic variable. Shin demands to know who messed with his destiny, but she claims she has no idea. Meanwhile, we cut back to Sang, who is busy grilling one of the captured thugs. Sang holds up a phone, demanding the passcode and calling the guy an idiot. The thug refuses, screaming that he would rather die. Sang smiles, telling him death is too easy before handing him over to some terrifying guys waiting in the shadows. The prisoner starts sweating bullets. Meanwhile, Shinjin Wook, the leader of Haihong's Team 1, gets an urgent phone call. The voice on the line says they secured the crystals, so Shinjin Wook orders them to Factory 3. He asks why the guy sounds so weird, but the puppet gasps out that everything is fine and they are moving. Wook tells him to monitor the DP. Now, pay attention here, Sang was listening to the entire call. Sang smirks, noting everything is going exactly to plan, then demands the factory's location. The terrified thug begs, saying his bosses will murder him if he talks. So Sang just turns to the scary executioners, telling them this guy wants to play. The moment they draw their blades, the captive completely folds and spills the address. Sang immediately tells Wu Heian to forward the location to Junmo. She tries to thank him, but our main character barely even blinks. Suddenly, a girl approaches Sang and asks to play a game. She mentions the news about Clonudo, asking if that is why all his buddies look identical. He nods, and she playfully asks if he even knows her name. He does, identifying her as the resident potion maker. Qin Wu Heian playfully pretends to strangle him before demanding to know where he hid his clones. Sang explains they are busy having a barbecue while he runs errands. Meanwhile, Junmo listens to the recorded call and instantly recognizes Shinjin Wook, the absolute mastermind behind their headaches. This locks in their connection. Qin Wu Hien then explains that the powerful Heong Guild relies on 5 key crystal suppliers to keep running. Even with Silver Moon gone, heavy hitters like Red Tail are still active. Junmo asks why they do not just raid Heong directly since crystal dealing is highly illegal. Good point, but she notes it is nearly impossible because Heong is led by Korea's strongest hunter. She warns Junmo to watch his back and stay safe. Junmo agrees and promises to warn Sun Wu as well, though Taewon laughs it off, saying nobody on Earth is crazy enough to try kidnapping that monster. Junmo then messages Sang, confirming these crystals are used to synthesize the drug DP, and warns Qin Wu Heian to stay inside the safety of the office. She asks if that ruined office trash by Silver Moon is even fixed yet. Sang just tells her she is in for a massive surprise. Junmo reveals a breathtaking, fully upgraded base complete with sleek meeting rooms and a state-of-the-art laboratory designed just for her. He even points out private living quarters in the back so she can stay safe. As she processes this, Junmo's phone rings, and his face instantly goes pale. It is an absolute emergency at the hospital, and they need Sang there right now. Alright, let's pivot to a darker scene. Inside Silver Moon's storage, a man stands over a pool of blood, calling for his allies as a creepy slime creature bubbles up. He demands the location of Yangju Chill, and is told the target is locked deep inside the Yahello Guild's basement. The masked figure warns that all their crystals were stolen and Sang has already tracked down their secret factory. Grimly, the leaf figure hands over several glowing vials, commanding his subordinate to use them immediately. He growls that if they want this drug, he will force-feed it to them raw. Over in the basement, a tied-up Yangju Chill watches in horror as that slime monster suddenly materializes. The creature raises a glowing syringe and plunges it right into Yang's neck. Meanwhile, 2 hunters walk nearby, plotting how they are going to interrogate him. She teases him, claiming he is just tagging along to protect her. But suddenly, a foul burning smell hits her nose, followed by thick plumes of black smoke. They sprint toward the flames, only to find a hideous, mutated monster roaring in the blaze next to a badly wounded hunter on the floor. The survivor gasps that this beast broke out of the basement, and their entire B-rank squad got utterly crushed, meaning this terrifying creature is at least an A-rank nightmare. A hunter wonders how a gate-level beast spawned without an active portal, but then she spots a familiar scar on its face. It is Yang Chill. Elsewhere, Kanjin lies defenseless in his hospital bed. Suddenly, a masked killer sneaks in, preparing a lethal injection. But a woman holding a digital tablet blocks his path, shouting that he will not touch him. The assassin teleports right next to her, threatening to inject her instead. But boom, Sang crashes through, hitting the killer with an earth-shattering shoulder tackle to the ribs. Meanwhile, the streets explode as the mutated Yang Chill tears through buildings. The defenders are losing their minds because Yang was a rank B hunter, not an A-rank god. Suddenly, she remembers a dark rumor about DP, a sinister drug engineered to forcefully mutate hunter bodies. Connecting the dots, she realizes their enemies are wiping out the Silver Moon Guild, which means the hospitalized Kanjin is in extreme danger right now. Turns out, Siona called Juno, who sent Sang just in time. Back at the fight, a hunter summons a legendary nine-tailed fox, blasting a massive energy beam through the monster's chest, and trust me, you and I need to see what happens next. Stick with me, we are starting with a monster throwing a punch, only for a fighter named W to slice its arm off. But the beast strikes back with a hidden cybernetic arm, blasting both hunters away. That devastating move? It belongs to Yang Chill, confirming his true identity. Out of nowhere, an old-timer with a blazing sword cuts down the beast. It is Gan, leader of the Soul Guild, and he demands that W explain where this thing came from. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sang warns a masked intruder that only doctors handle needles, launching a sudden strike that the villain barely blocks. The intruder wonders how Sang tracked him. Sang's female ally tries to burn him alive, but the masked man casually snuffs out her fire with a simple hand wave. Sang drops from above with a bone-shattering kick, snapping the intruder's arm and sending him flying. As Sang stands guard, a rescued girl gasps out her thanks. Staring at Sang's massive, buffed-up clones, the masked man finally realizes how Kanjin was defeated. These giants glare down at him, ready to tear him apart. He knows Sang is baiting him into a brawl, but he is smart enough to know he cannot take them all at once. Vanishing into thin air, he warns Sang that an assassin named Vegas is targeting his hospitalized sister in the mana absorption unit. Hearing this, Sang absolutely boils with rage. After the chaos, three top guilds, Soul, Yahello, and Canis declare the outbreak resolved. A man named Gun tries to expose Haisong as the mastermind, but the media completely ignores him. Instead, they blame a simple containment breach, letting Haisong walk away completely clean. Others try to leak the truth, but it was useless. When investigators finally found the crystal's original site and the production facility, everything was stripped bare. Humanoid monsters kept popping up across the city for a while, but local hunters quickly put them down. Now here is where it gets interesting. Sometime later, Song sits down with Junmo and tells him they absolutely need to hire a bodyguard. Ever since that crazy Silver Moon incident, he wants safety over efficiency. Junmo instantly guesses that Sang will use his clones. Exactly. Sang is broke and needs to save every penny for an S-rank healer for his sister. So, he designs a plan. One clone stays home to protect his parents. Two will guard his sister at the hospital. One watches Junmo's agency, and another two will undergo brutal, non-stop training to boost his stats. This leaves the real Sang completely free. As for the seventh clone, Sang sent it straight to the Kindness Guild training grounds inside Odin's tower. Inside, the clone grabs a megaphone, screaming to attract every monster nearby. Suddenly, invisible beasts charge, followed by a terrifying swarm of monsters known as Spawn V30. Facing the horde, the clone drinks a potion and triggers a massive explosion. Meanwhile, the new Hunters Academy opens its doors in Korea, led by President Haku. Their goal? Helping low-rank hunters with free skill, training, and better item drop rates. It is open to anyone, regardless of talent, giving rookies a chance to train directly with seasoned veteran hunters. Plus, the top student of the year gets a mysterious, highly coveted elixir. Meanwhile, at a private gym, Sang and his clones are sweating bullets during training. But Sang hits a wall. Those 250-kilogram dumbbells are way too light now, and he cannot find any one-ton weights on the market. Then, he spots an academy broadcast on TV. He almost ignores it, until they announce that the grand prize is a legendary, world-renowned elixir. And yeah, I know what you were thinking. Even though he doesn't know its exact power, Sang is instantly hooked. The screen shows a school built like a majestic European castle. Its motto promises that any hunter can overcome their weaknesses and master new skills. A bit skeptical, Sang asks Jumo if this crazy prize is legit. Jumo confirms they are baiting elite applicants from across the globe with it. It seems fishy for a school to have this, but Jumo reveals it was founded by George Lucas, the legendary and only jumper in existence. Sang is still confused. Why would a billionaire corporate titan build a school just to give away such a priceless treasure? Jumo admits the guy's motives are sketchy, but guesses he wants to close the massive power gap between low and high-rank hunters, saving lives during outbreaks. Surprisingly, the academy actually prefers weak applicants. Hearing this, Sang suddenly regrets grinding his rank up so incredibly fast. But Jumo reassures him. In a hilarious twist, Sang's low-quality, trash-tier skills are actually his biggest advantage here. His only actual skills are F rank, while normal B rank hunters have around 70 high-tier moves. Sang literally climbed the ranks using raw stats and clones. Laughing, Jumo says Sang's lack of skills makes him a shoo-in. When Sang tells him to stop, Jumo reveals a donation backdoor. Sang demands details, and Jumo points to his massive bounty from the Canis incident. Sang realizes even 5 billion won is a steal if it cures his sister. Later, at the orientation, the academy president gives a speech and publicly welcomes Sang, calling it an honor to have him. A humbled Sang downplays it, but the president announces Sang donated a whopping 2.5 billion won. Sang smiles, though he secretly feels dirty for literally buying his way in. All around him, other students whisper, recognizing him as the legendary clone user. Some even wonder if the guy standing there is just a clone. Sang ignores the gossip. He's confident he'll crush the competition. But then the director announces that 2 B-rank hunters are joining this year. The other B-rank's identity is top secret, but rumors say they are just as famous and powerful as Sang himself. This mystery rival is a huge threat to Sang's elixir plans. Meanwhile, Professor Kang Haesuk is introduced to teach basic food magic. With no real classes on day 1, Sang stays focused on his goal. Suddenly, a student invites everyone to an after-party at Bar Gori. Let's see if he can find his rival. Sang decides to go check out the incredibly crowded bar to scope things out. He immediately gets mobbed by classmates, especially some girls who recognize him. They fangirl over him, asking if he is the badass clone user who killed the monster. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the action where they beg Sang to show off his cloning skills. But since his clones are busy on a mission, he declines and casually asks if anyone knows the other B-rank hunter. The students have no clue. As far as they know, the internet only hyped up Sang's arrival at the academy. Realizing this mystery hunter is laying low, Sang decides to bounce. But the girls aren't letting him leave that easily, quickly handing him a massive drink and begging him to stay. He downs the whole thing, says his thanks, and walks out, leaving everyone stunned. With his insane poison resistance, alcohol is basically just water to him. Strolling down the street, he realizes his life has gotten way too intense lately, leaving zero time to just hang out like the old days. Suddenly, a mysterious girl in a cap stops him, asking where the student party is. He gives her directions, letting her know the party is still going strong, but she wonders why he's heading home so early. Sang admits he doesn't know anyone, but as she offers to grab a drink with him instead, her voice triggers a memory. He looks closer and realizes it's Yan, his former student. She smiles, glad he recognizes her. Shocked to find her at this hunter academy, he immediately asks if she ended up failing that college entrance exam he spent so much time helping her study for. Yan dodges the question, complaining about the freezing weather and bringing up that drink again. Knowing he needs to play along to get answers, Sang agrees to sit down. He teases her again about failing her test, but she proudly denies it, claiming she actually passed with flying colors. Now pay attention, because what she says next completely catches him off guard. She reveals her true dream was always to be a hunter, and she only sat for that college exam to make her parents happy. Her real goal was always to get a license. When this academy opened, she begged her worried parents to let her sign up, eventually winning them over. They warned her it was dangerous, but she wouldn't back down. Then, she turns the tables and asks why he is here, calling him professor. Feeling awkward, he tells her to drop the title since he's not teaching anymore. But she smugly points out they're classmates now, giving him a playful new nickname instead. Teasing him for being so flustered, she demands he look her in the eye. A few drinks later, though, she is completely wasted. She slurs for another round, but Sang cuts her off. Face planted on the table, she suddenly snaps awake and demands his new phone number. Once she gets it, she smiles, muttering that he has no excuse to ignore her now, before immediately passing out cold. Sang just sighs and pays the bill. Later, she blinks, her eyes open, only to realize she's piggybacking on Sang's back. Half asleep, she confusedly asks if she passed out and if they're heading home. Sang dryly tells her she was out cold right at the counter. Complaining that her head is spinning and she can't walk, she clings tightly to him as he carries her. Resting on his shoulder, she asks why he ghosted everyone for months, pointing out he could have easily found a way to reach out even with a new number. She admits she wanted to punch him out of anger, but seeing him made those feelings melt away. In the end, she's just glad they got to hang out. You and I both know Sang is usually a closed book, but here he actually admits he enjoyed their hangout too. He calls it his best day in 6 months, noting that the night is still young. Opening up, he confesses that he's actually just super lazy. He feared that returning to his old life would make him lose his edge, repeating past regrets. Knowing how hard it is to change, he cut ties with everyone just to stay laser-focused. But he reassures her that she still matters to him, handing her a cab. Arriving at her house, she softly admits she totally misjudged him. Sang tells her to wear the cap, teasingly forgiving her just this once. As he turns to leave, she warns him she won't be so forgiving next time. Meanwhile, a man named Hai Song watches, noting Sang's massive impact. Nearby, an operative in a white mask apologizes, reporting that the Nudo clone was way stronger than they thought, calling the clone a total bastard. Hai Song mutters that this guy was actually Jang Sang-woo, regretting that he didn't grab an autograph. Suddenly, another figure appears, asking why the lights are out. Ignoring the dark, Hai Song demands to know if all the preparations are ready. He tells them they'll be making their move at the academy next week. He wants results that prove the massive effort it took to get them enrolled. The person nods. It's Shin Juni, Hai Song's son, promising he won't disappoint his father. Hai Song commands his son to secure the elixir. Cut to a week later, where Sang's class is setting up for their first elemental magic lesson. The professor enters and announces they'll be starting with the fireball skill, calling it an incredibly popular and versatile spell. Sang just stares, seriously wondering if he even needs to learn this basic magic. He remembers mastering his strong strike skill through sheer physical effort, so he's curious how they'll teach a spell. And just like that, the episode wraps up. So what do you and I make of this crazy story so far? Drop your ratings from 0 to 10 in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe for more epic stories like this.